And I'll bring the Concord School Committee meeting to order, and welcome to any and all visitors and guests. Let's see, do we have any public comments? Any over there? Any public comments from the audience? Then we get right into recognitions. Here we get to hear from someone special tonight. We're gonna bring.
Yeah, bring Mr. Cameron up and
all right.
Take it over from there. Oh, sure.
Do you mind if we just borrow your seat? Thank you.
Hey, you can come over here if you want.
So I'd like to introduce to the committee Anna Ames, who is a 7th grader at Concord Middle School. And Anna has a presentation that she has already shared with the middle school leadership team. It's an abridged presentation. There's a part 1 and a part 2. I'll share a little bit about part 2 in a couple minutes. But just know that this presentation was already made to me, and she just wants an opportunity to share a little bit with all of you. So I'm going to turn it over to Anna.
Wow, welcome. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. Is this a mic?
Yeah, there it is.
Yes.
So, I wanted to come here to give a presentation about emotional support and therapy dogs and how they might help not only in our school but lots of other schools in Concord. Yeah.
Try the arrow.
No, yeah, they are.
Arrow. On the keyboard. Oh. Here, there we go.
Nice. That should do it. So, I gathered some research supporting therapy dogs in schools. And so I've researched from the Association for Supervision and Curriculum Development and the research from the National Associates of School Nurses. So the ASCD has found research that supports the idea that therapy dogs are helping with everything from trauma to reading, interventions to school climate. And I have the site there if any of you guys want to look at it. And I also have research from the National Association of School Nurses. And the school nurses provide care coordination for students with service animals to ensure the smooth transition of service animal to school, as well as monitoring the effectiveness of the animal for the task it is to perform. So, I found other schools and districts that have welcome therapy dogs, and one of them is the Hopkins Public School, Medway Public Schools, and Hanover Public Schools. So, I feel like a lot of you guys might ask, like, what if a student in the school is allergic to the dog? Because that could be a big concern. So, our school would have accommodations such as no contact with the animal, no field trips where the animal is present, and no shared events in the room where the animal is located.
So I think we discussed this being an opportunity where, again, this was just a very abridged version of her presentation and her advocacy for therapy dogs in schools that she has done with me and also her classroom. So we wanted to open it up for questions, and then we had another small part of this presentation that we want to bring you into as well. Questions for Anna?
I'd love it, Anna, if you could go back to the time when you had this original idea that this was something that was interesting to you, necessary for us to think about. Where did it start? Because it's led you to this place, but I'd love to know what inspired you to think about it and take this kind of action.
Thank you. In New York, I just moved here, New York. I go to a certain dog park every day. It's a very long story. But there's one service dog there that goes to school with everyone. It's a private school. Their owner is a teacher. And I thought it was really, really cool. And so when I came here, Mr. Cameron and I discussed it. And he started taking all of these opportunities to talk with me, and it really means a lot.
So I just want to say at the school where I work, we have a dog, recently got it, and we have it, it's particularly helpful during MCAS or any challenging time of the year. And we've had no problems just with allergies or he's a very quiet, calming person. And I think it helps the adults more than the kids. To tell you the truth.
I wanted to ask, maybe Mr. Cameron knows, can we use it for therapy for school committee?
So I understand there's research that says if you or I pat a dog on our blood pressure will go down. Do you see, as Ms. Rainey says, that this is something that would primarily benefit us in terms of the stressful climate that sometimes we experience in our schools? Is that what's going on?
And I know that, like, a service dog, or, well, in this case, a therapy dog, has a lot of benefits. I had some, I didn't have all the time to do it, but some of the benefits go as far as to companionship, reduce stress levels.
Say reduce stress level, focusing on building community in the school. We were both pleasantly surprised in those schools that have therapy animals and how it really brings the school together and promotes positive school culture. And the students just start acting kinder to each other in the presence of a therapy dog. One of the other things that we uncovered is the support that the dog needs. And the focus and attention that the dog gets, and with the obvious, how will the school respond to maybe a distraction of learning and students wanting to come out of classes, there's also a certain amount of stress and anxiety that the dog receives in getting so much attention. So our next step is to look at, probably starting at Sanborn, where Anna is a student, in finding ways to slowly integrate, a therapy dog in just small chunks of time at Sanborn, and really just finding ways within the programs that we have at Sanborn for the dog to maybe visit programs. We also have silent sustained reading happening all over the building, and that's one of the things that in our research we found that dogs can really promote, believe it or not, a culture of reading and reflection and a sense of calmness, almost in a mindful way, which was we found pretty fascinating as well.
Tell us a little bit about the practical part, not during school hours, but after hours. Somebody takes the dog home. What's happening?
Yeah, so it's interesting you say that because there is a part 2 of this presentation that is happened right now, which is we weren't quite sure if we were able to make this happen, so it's kind of a surprise to Anna, but we have the president of Pets for People, which is the organization that we have partnered with to do this, along with her therapy dog. Don't look over there. Just text. So we have Martha, who is the president of Pets for People, coming in with her therapy dog, Greta. So Greta and Martha, if you can hear us up there, Ms. Brand.
Let's go see if they're here.
If I may say something, I know one of, I'm not sure about them.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
We'd love to hear from you.
So I don't know whose dog it is, but one of the faculty members at our school brings in his or her dog occasionally, and we see them. And it's honestly such a blessing because I have a dog myself, and I was actually told that not only petting a dog helps lower your heart rate, but also you and your dog are both releasing oxytocin, which is a hormone that is releasing love and compassion. And I just want to applaud you because I'm a high school junior, and coming to the school committee was something that was very nerve-wracking for me, but you just very eloquently gave such a lovely presentation, and I'm very excited to hear about this.
Sounds like we're gonna have this conversation.
Wow.
Yeah, I love dogs, so.
So Superintendent
You made me cry on TV.
Hunter, school committee members, chair, I'd like to introduce Martha, who is the president
Wow.
of Pets and People. Pets and People out of Acton, Massachusetts. And Greta, who is a therapy dog.
Wow, welcome.
Greta.
Thank you.
So Martha, I'd like to introduce you to Anna, who is,
Anna.
the whole reason why we're here is because of her.
You're why I'm here.
Yes, she is why you are here. So we wanted an opportunity to ask, and we're so grateful that you're here, ask questions of you and your partnerships that you've had with schools. School committee member just asked, well, I think you were kind of asking, how does it look, right?
The practicalities of after hours and, where somebody takes the dog home, what are the practicalities of the exercise?
The practicality, I'm sorry,
Just that,
listening to her
Oh.
one person.
Well, we're
What happens
imagining-
after hours? The dog goes with somebody home?
Oh, she's my pet.
so a,
Oh,
a
she is my
handler comes with the dog
All right,
through this organization.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
yes,
Yeah.
she's my pet, and as Pets and People, we certify, we have an evaluator, and we certify the teams. And I say we certify the teams because we are a therapy team. She is not just a therapy dog. My husband couldn't take her out to places and all, because I was certified with her to show that I have control of her, that I can handle her, that we have a good rapport and all. So anyways, she is our pet, they are our pets, and they are our pets first and foremost, and we are always watching to see that the animal is having a good time, that they're enjoying it when they start to get tired. She's whimpering because she wants to be petted.
Oh, maybe Anna can help with that.
Yes.
I thought that was
Yeah, she should get on with you. She wants to say hi. So they are our pets first and foremost, and what we're looking at when we certify them is not only how well behaved she is, but how she wants to be petted, how they want to. Sometimes dogs are not particularly wanting to or something, but we want to make sure that they're looking forward to being petted and that they enjoy it. So does that answer your question? I often get asked, is she a real dog? And I say, oh yeah, because when I get home, she starts tearing through the yard.
I don't think that I definitely, and I don't know that we realize that the dog comes with a handler.
Oh, okay.
The
Yes.
presentation was about the dog. Now we have another one about the handler.
Well, it's a lot more fun to talk than me. But yeah, and it's an important piece of it actually, is because we don't ever let go of the leash. I've worked quite a bit in schools with children, and even though I've worked and they want to walk the dog and stuff, and I've always got a hold of the leash, even though she's not going anywhere. But that is part of the agreement when we certify them.
In terms of the agreement, is it typically that you and Greta would align with one organization, one school, or does Greta befriend
Greta
several
goes
organizations?
everywhere.
How's it more practical, how would it actually work with
Yeah.
our middle school?
It depends. All of our teams are volunteers, so it depends on our schedules and how that works and our interests. Greta's been doing pet therapy. I'm sorry, she's got her back to you, but
It's quite all right.
Looking at the camera. She's looking at the camera.
Yeah, exactly. She's ready to be a
That's
TV
what she's
star.
We don't count. Or she has good instincts.
Yeah.
Greta has been to several places. I looked at her list. She's probably been, for 8 years she's been doing this, she's probably been to about 20 different places over all these years. And it's one of the places she's been going for 8 years. So it just depends on how things work. She's done reading, children have read to her. She's worked in schools, with hospice patients, assisted living facilities. We've worked at we go to the VA hospital in Bedford. Not all of those at one time.
Right.
Over the years.
When Martha talks about teams, a team is a handler and a dog. And we really felt this is the best way, Anna and I, and putting a toe in the water. You know, other schools that have therapy animals do it differently.
Yeah.
But there's sometimes a huge cost to that. You know, we just found this is the best way through this this nonprofit, you know, to really just start slowly and to have it start, you know, in just little pockets, little bite-sized snacks, if you will.
That's awesome. This is great.
Can I say I'm a huge fan of this organization. I am close with someone who is actually volunteers and is as a team. You might know Sierra, the Bernese Mountain Dog.
Linda.
Exactly. And I'm so excited to see you here. Anna, I am so incredibly impressed with what you have done, the research that you did, going to Mr. Cameron, bringing it to us. I'm overwhelmed. It's really amazing. So I'm so excited to see this. And I'd love to know when you say dip your toe in the water, Justin, what kind of things are you thinking in terms of when the team could come in? Is it, you know, during tests? Is it certain days of the week? Is it random times? What's the general idea here for starting?
Yep. So I think the first step is to have a longer conversation with Martha and get paired with a team. But then Anna and I have spoken about how a team could only, you know, spend maybe about an hour to really get the you know, the animal, you know, simulated with our culture and comfortable with our culture, and you know, visiting some of the programs that we have, and then we have a English department that knows that this is happening, and through their SEL goals, their social and emotional goals, they have a goal to find therapeutic ways to empower, as I mentioned earlier, the silent sustained reading and that program. So I think it would be a visit into some of those classes as well.
That's great.
Awesome.
That's terrific.
You know, Anna, we've been talking about this for about a year, so you're the one who just made it happen. So I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is
Thank you.
amazing.
Yay.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you so much for bringing
Yes.
Greta to visit us.
You're welcome.
It really brings the
Exactly.
concept to life.
So quick question, when is Greta starting?
So we're actually not sure if it's Greta.
Right.
We're going to be paired with a team,
Yep.
and you know, that's really up to. I'll leave
Well, I
that
don't know,
question
what
to
you were just saying sounds very interesting.
Maybe it is Greta.
I've done quite a bit with schools, so I'm very interested in talking to you.
Awesome.
She's worked with school psychologists, she's worked with speech and language therapists and motivational type things.
You
Kids
have an
have been known
opportunity.
to earn Greta points.
You have an opportunity here to tell us and tell the public how your organization is supported.
How are
If you
we
could.
supported? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
We are supported by donations. We have we've been around, Pets and People has been around, I'm sorry. Pets and People has been around
okay.
for about 35 years as a nonprofit, and we are local. We're basically Worcester and East.
Okay.
We do go down a little bit down into the Cape, and we dabble a little bit up in southern New Hampshire. But we're mostly in Acton and Boston area. But we rely on donations. We do not charge for our services. We are all volunteers, except for myself, who I am paid very part-time, and we do pay an evaluator to evaluate the teams. She's a trainer, and that's an important piece of our organization, obviously. And we do cover our teams with insurance. That's the piece for the certification.
Great.
Wow.
Well, we're very fortunate to have both of you come tonight. Thank you, echo what
Yes.
Ms. Bout says. Thank you for inspiring your principal to inspire us. I think it's a lovely idea.
Yes.
It's wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Good
much.
luck with this. Wonderful.
Photo op.
I know.
You want a photo op?
Yeah.
Lori, do you want a photo with them?
Yeah, of course. Well, or at least
Lori
their
and-
photo.
Want me
We'll
to
take it,
take
we'll
one
take
of
the
them?
picture.
See the Twitter now. School committee goes to the dog.
That's right. Now we all want to say hi to her.
Now I know what I want to be when I grow up.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's dog. Absolutely.
We got a quick
Well,
picture
that
of
was
the
good.
view.
That's
Yeah,
right.
we have to sit.
And paw printing.
I'm not just
Orange and produce. Yeah.
You go. Budget, looks like we have time for the budget.
Thanks for trying.
It's really nice to meet you. She's not chipping. Exactly.
Tough act to follow there, Mr. Stan.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for coming.
Chair has a whole list of recognitions he wants.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Thank
much. Good luck with this. Oh, someone's.
We'll be here again on December 3rd. Feel free to come back.
I would have
Yeah,
been
exactly.
back if I could.
We can't wait to get our school therapy dog, school committee therapy.
2 years from now, there'll probably be a dog that we're just having sleep with her night.
This was a
No, we just like therapy.
That's a great.
Wow.
You know, one of the things that I'm sure will happen is, kids flock to dogs. And kids that would not normally interact with each other will interact
We'll
with each other.
interact together,
Because
yeah,
there's a dog there.
the social
Which
ties.
is phenomenal.
Wow. That was one of the neatest recognitions we
Yes.
ever had. That was
It's
really
really hard. Mr. Cameron gets all the credit
In
for.
middle school, we should
Anyhow.
Yeah.
Anyhow.
Yeah.
And of course, Anna
Sustainable.
was the initiative.
Yes.
We're gonna work on it at the high school.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if we can.
That's
Definitely.
very good.
So,
Wow.
no more recognitions, right?
That's it for
That's
today.
it.
That's enough.
Yeah, that's enough.
All right.
So, we have
On
some
to minutes.
minutes to discuss and approve. They're all joint meetings. And they are 10:22, 10:29, and 11:05. Can I have a motion to approve them all? And I can do a consent run if somebody wants. I'd move Also that the minutes of October 22, October 29, and November 5, 2019 be approved, noting that we're looking at the most current revision of same
For the two committees.
for the two committees.
And
Thank you.
second for the two.
Any discussion? If you would like any of these called out, let me know. 10:22, 10:29, 11:05. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Chairs and liaison reports. I don't have anything of note. Big thing on our focus is the budget, so.
Yeah, I would just update more of a liaison report. The chair will do middle school later, so we'll talk about that now. But I joined the League of Women Voters Education Committee recently, and as always, it was a great meeting with them. I gave them some highlights of what we knew of the budget so far. This was before this one came out, so just kind of the direction it was going and where we were with building committee and everything. They're very enthusiastic to support and get engaged, and as I told them about the communication plans for the building committee, they were actually excited to host a coffee of their own and have some of us there. They're also talking about having one of their first Friday events, I think in February. I think it's February. Be regarding the middle school. So great.
And education.
And education.
Yes.
But great communication going on there. Yeah, terrific collaborative relationship.
So anybody else have?
Any other
Anybody
liaison?
want a subcommittee? Subcommittee?
Yeah, great.
David, you want to speak to the budget?
Sure. We met yesterday, seems like a consistent meeting. And so there are a few different issues. The first issue was, is there value to kind of a retrospective meeting of the budget committee to review what's happening, like a current budget review? As I had articulated at our last meeting, I personally didn't feel that a subcommittee was needed for that because I think the administration does a very thorough job at presenting the warrants, presenting the budget status, and in any case, there's really not much actionable because those are typically committed funds. So the oversight of, are you spending the money the way you said? I think the documentation provided is self-explanatory. So there seemed to be general consensus that just to meet to do that wouldn't particularly be value added. However, we segued into a topic that's very close to us in Carlisle, which has to do with what one might do with unspent funds, excess funds. Prepaying certain tuitions is one of the ways one can use those funds. This being a district, it has different rules than the town school system would in terms of its own E&D. But what we found in the town of Carlisle is that there was interest by the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen to have some vision, or visibility, I should say, into how that excess is spent. They get the budget is passed through a due process, there's a lot of examination. But then when you're actually running your budget, your current year budget, things don't always work out exactly the same. Now, in the region, there is an E&D fund, so it can be tapped or it can be contributed to. And so my suggestion, which I think we're taking up, is that maybe a quarterly reporting of that activity, whether we have excess and how are we spending it, or whether we're running a deficit for some unforeseen reason, and where are we pulling that money from. That little piece of oversight would be useful and doesn't need to be monthly, it could be at the close of each fiscal quarter. So we've just concluded, well, a month ago we concluded the first fiscal quarter, which generally is not too informative because it's mostly the summertime. But in early January, we will have the second fiscal quarter completed, which is a 6-month snapshot, so that's a decent snapshot. And then we can do it again in the spring and have a much more clarity as to how the year's going to end up, and then I'm not sure whether we would bother in the summer or not. But there will be some final accounting. So that seemed to be something that was deemed useful. What else did we cover?
Can I ask a question? First of all, thank you for having this discussion because it's so valuable, and I'm happy. I like what I hear, what came out of it. I think that all makes sense. Just clarifying, when you say update quarterly on excess, my understanding was that if you're talking quarterly or even at the half year, you're talking projected excess. We don't actually have an excess yet at that point. So you wouldn't use it for something else.
Yes, I mean, we haven't worked out the mechanics, but
okay.
Again, I'm much more familiar with the Carlisle budget, so forgive me on that. But there's an encumbrance, right? So we pass a budget, and I would say 90% of it is encumbered in some fashion. Laurie's on salary, teachers are on contract, utilities are on contract, maintenance. I mean, almost everything's known. So the encumbered amount I take as that it's going to happen. And so from the first part of my comments, reviewing, the vouchers, which we do, many of us review them and sign them, okay, but it's just, okay, the final check that actually, yes, I am paying the, retirement fund X dollars, but it's really not necessary to review that whole thing. But there will be some pot of money that is already in E&D that's identified as a cushion.
So it's basically
and there are certain things that may happen. So if, I'll use again the Carlisle example. This first quarter of the year, we didn't have any drinking water because the wells were deemed bad and there was no fix. There was a constant argument. It's a long, not that interesting story, but the fact is we brought in bottled water for about 2 months.
Wow.
That was an expense that, insurance may cover some of it, but it's unforeseen.
Right.
So the report out on that should be, okay, how much did you spend on this event? We already know we have the money. It's not like we don't have it, but reporting on at the margins of unexpected things. An out-of-district placement that wasn't anticipated. Or on the other side of savings. We thought we would need, I don't know, more heat for the winter, and boy, it was a warm winter, so we saved this much.
So
those are the kind of things that
variances.
Yeah, I think those are the things that are useful on a periodic.
Definitely. Just wanted to kind of clarify.
Did we
Great,
cover
thank you.
something else? It seems like I'm missing something.
No, I think we covered it. And one thing we could have discussed, chose not to, was the audit. and where that would fall in terms of school committee scrutiny. So I think that's going to be at the entire school committee level by default, because we chose not to go there. Other than that, I think that was it.
Great, thanks.
Certainly.
So we had a subcommittee, I'm going to go into the details, we had a subcommittee meeting, the policy, I think we reviewed a few policies, they will come to you, I don't know, we voted on them, they will come, and then.
December 3rd will bring.
Yeah, and you'll see, there's nothing, no major changes in the policies that we reviewed. We updated to MASC current changes, we added some cross-references. In those that we actually reviewed, there are no major things to report, I think.
Great.
Maybe
We'll see them all.
following the state law, the most important change was the school improvement plans that before, according to our policy, had to be brought to us for approval, are now to be approved by superintendent after she presents to us. But the approval is superintendent, it follows Massachusetts law, change in Massachusetts.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd add to that that the subcommittee remains open to suggestions from any quarter, especially here, as to what should be reviewed and when. Do we take some out of order as we do our review? MASC does not have every policy that we have seen in districts around Massachusetts. One that I think has a lot of support in our subcommittee is a look at a civil rights and hate speech policy specifically, even though we know it's embedded in other policies. To call it out in a singular way, we think might have some great value. And then the other piece, you may have more certainly, but my colleagues suggested that I might chair the thing, the subcommittee, but that is ultimately a chair prerogative to determine who the subcommittee chair is. So we bring my name to
Okay.
you.
Yes,
But we already voted on him, so
We
you
voted
should
on it
just,
anyway, but it is a chair
Should
appointment.
we bequeath him with the title right now?
Yeah.
Is that something?
You don't have to, it's not something you vote, you just.
Yeah.
So the first thing on the agenda, if I understand right, our agreement, next meeting will be the question of the civil rights and hate
Yes.
crime. It's a big question, and the examples that we have from other districts are very elaborate, including all kind of regulations. And I personally, I'm already pushing this change more than 4 years. And I actually think that if you have time, you should try and come to the next subcommittee.
Can't have too many.
I really
can be there.
Others should go as observers, not to
Yeah.
discuss. You can sit on the side and observe.
I actually think
Should,
we-
just to, thank you for the heads up, that's good to know. Just to check that off the list, should we just
Yeah,
hand him the title right now?
Court.
Court,
invest.
your chair.
Happy chair.
Neil,
Happy to. It's a tough crowd.
I dubbed thee.
And I believe our next meeting is December 19 at 10:30 in the morning.
9:30.
9:30, thank
Yeah.
you,
We
thank
moved
you,
this
9:30. Thank you. Oh, and
Okay.
and I think we should
Ladies
note
and gentlemen,
that Dorothy
right.
Presser of MASC continues to be a very helpful resource, even though
Yes.
you've all had done more homework than even she had. That won't always be the case, perhaps.
Well, and also, I think Aaron did a great job, preparing for this.
Yeah, here.
Thank you,
There's a lot to go through.
It's a lot to go through. It's a lot to go through.
But I have to say that I am impressed, the MASC policies are pretty clear, they do update them pretty regularly, which is good. And I think we're striving for the simplest framework that we can, given all the complexities of it, and making sure that, we don't really deviate too far from the MASC template unless we have a very good reason to do so, and I think that's the right approach.
Great.
And I was in the district safety committee, but the superintendent is going to report about it. It will be a double report.
We'll let her do that.
Yeah, in my experience, that's one of the things MASC to the solo force, because when there are legal changes,
Yeah.
it would be really hard for us to pick those up, but, you know, they're on top of those pretty regularly. Any other,
A quick feedback.
Sure.
Yeah.
So just a quick CPAC update. Tomorrow, is it tomorrow? No, November 21st, 12:30 to 2:30 is a boards members meeting for CPAC, and just bringing it back. November 7th, there was a meet the director of student services and superintendent, and that was well attended. And the feedback we are getting, the parents really appreciated that conversation. So, thank you.
thank you.
Okay, thanks.
So,
Linda do her high school.
Yeah, let's do Linda.
Let's do
Oh,
students.
yes.
Linda, you wanna jump in now?
Yeah, sure. So obviously I'm usually here with Amy, but she's not here today because there's the dress rehearsal for the Laramie project, which opens up this Thursday, and the shows are Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And unfortunately, all our teams are out of playoffs. But
It went far.
for cross country,
Cross country?
they actually the girls team won first in states, and the boys team came in third. And Emma Carimo, she's a junior, and she got second in state. Will Chaffin, a senior, got second in state as well. And the boys soccer team, they just lost 1-0 to Winchester on Sunday
Tough loss.
in sectional finals. I went to the game; it was still an amazing game. And the boys football team unfortunately lost to Danvers, but they still have their Thanksgiving game coming up. And next week with Thanksgiving, there's a huge spirit assembly and also a cornhole tournament and powder puff. And all the proceeds that are raised from that, like for example, you have to pay $5 in order to play cornhole, are going to the Matthew Shepard Foundation in honor of the Laramie Project. And something that I would like to add about that is starting just beginning this year, my English class and a couple other junior English classes have actually read the Laramie Project. And because it is a very, in my opinion, I think it's a great way to tie in the whole justice and judgment theme of junior year English. And especially since the Laramie Project is the fall play, it just ties in really well.
Wow, that's really good.
that's great.
So may I piggyback on this report and say that this last Saturday there was the state senior district for music, and the achievement of Concord-Carlisle High School is unprecedented.
Yes.
8 first chairs and 18
Wow.
recommended to all state, which is it is extreme.
It's amazing.
Wow.
Excellent.
Anything else, Linda? Is that-
Well, I would just like to say that I feel like adding the therapy dogs would be a great way to release stress.
I'm on it. I'm emailing the high school as we sit here.
Nice.
You and I are gonna sit up and point on this true, okay?
Now you're the witness that it can happen.
Just
Good
exact
finish.
opinion.
Glad you were here for that.
Tomorrow, I think there'll be 7 requests.
Yeah.
One for each school.
In the school committee.
Exactly.
Oh, 8, right.
Especially during testing.
Except we can
Yeah.
use Ripley's. We can
Especially
just,
during testing.
Yeah, right.
We'll call them.
I will all meeting there on Thursday. You have a quorum.
Yeah.
Simon.
That'd be great. Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Well,
Linda.
One other thing, the
Yeah.
town meeting, coordination meeting
Mhm.
is Saturday, December 7th at 8 a.m. And the usual,
It's a good way to
I
damp
mean,
down
I can
the
have
turnout.
our chair, but he'll correct me if I'm wrong.
Night.
The
December
town
7th, I didn't know
usually
that.
brings their draft warrant articles, sort of, kind of.
At 8.
They'll tell you what articles I think they're gonna
Right.
do, but the drafts are not due until the
That's-
16th of December.
Okay. But it is 8 a.m., am I correct? 8 a.m.?
It usually is.
Very dry run.
Who
Dry
runs
run.
Right.
Okay, good to know. Thanks.
Thank you. So if there's nothing else on updates, we did have one letter that was requesting information, making some recommendations about what we use for laptops, which is a topic that we have dealt with in great detail over time. But we welcome the input. So Superintendent's report.
Great, thank you.
Oh, wait. I got this letter today.
Oh,
Just in case anybody was planning to go to this. The EDCO Collaborative is canceling the 50th anniversary celebration at the State House on November 22nd due to low attendance. So if you were one of those not part of the low attendance, stay home.
That's too bad. We should have it here.
Yeah,
I think they're gonna work on rescheduling and finding a time.
Maybe a venue.
it's a tough time of year.
Closest to,
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
What region is EDCO serving?
EDCO's the collaborative,
I know what
so
it is, but
it's 11 districts.
they want Metro North? kind of?
Yes, I won't
You're
be able
in
to rattle them all off, like Carlisle and
Yeah.
Concord are both there, Lexington, Weston,
Acton.
Lincoln,
So,
Lincoln,
and
Sudbury.
You're a board member, right, also?
Jim and I are both
Okay,
board
so I would,
members. Yeah.
given what Chair just said, I mean, the recommendation might be, they should have it more local.
Yeah, the state has
Because it's really, who cares? the state house?
ceremonial, but not,
The region is,
Yeah.
have it somewhere.
yeah, it's all out here.
Because in the 50th, it's a big deal.
Thank you.
And
Pass
that's
that
my
on.
recommendation.
Good idea.
All right. Let me just do highlights of my report. I think one thing that struck me is that as I put this together is that for almost every topic here, there's a committee in place, and it's a very inclusive process that isn't just the leadership or just me. It's really being driven by engaged teachers, and that's making it even more impactful, I think, because we're bringing their ideas in and embedding them and taking their feedback, and then their messengers going back out to their representative schools. So just highlights then, student wellness. Kristen's leading the social emotional learning committee. We did a SWOT analysis in here yesterday, and we looked at our strengths and needs, and we will be continuing that work towards a collective vision and ultimately a professional development plan. The leadership team has had early conversations on restorative justice. We have a lot of learning to do to see how that might fit in for us. And we're looking at culture surveys. This is part of my goals. I've met with the unions both, and I'm sharing the survey so everyone knows what to expect and there's no surprises. So we should be ready to implement that this winter. Educator evaluation. Not only working with the evaluators as I expressed I would do so. I met with all of them on their goals, and we've had really great professional dialogue and talked on support. We're doing regular building walks, meeting with the CCTA regularly. We're mirroring the CTA's process of last year to review the language and processes and deadlines, little things like every teacher having the same formative deadline in January is a big deal for us. From this end, when both contracts sync up, becomes pretty exciting. So we've got common deadlines now, and it's been another great professional collaborative discussion with different nuances to it at the high school. The department chairs do a lot of the evaluating, so it's had a different set of things to talk on. Innovative pedagogy, that committee is also meeting and looking at what that looks like. So we're also in the process of doing sort of SWOT analysis and creating a vision. Rivers and Revolutions is getting out to the 5th grade classrooms in half of the schools. They will be doing the other half in the spring. So that's been already a big success. Inclusion and cultural competency. We're planning an equity audit, as is in my goals, to look at feedback from focus groups and surveys at a much deeper level, primarily focused on, in this audit, racial equity. It really takes another layer deep. Wellesley's done a model one that we've been studying and believe would be very beneficial for us. Professional development plans, I have to reference this, I attached it to my report. This is the paths that Kristen and her office and a lot of other people have collaborated on to create 4 pages worth of paths for pre-K to 12. This is really a first for us, that we've been able to have collective cross-school collaboration in terms of professional development. So this is over 3 days, 3 afternoons really, December, February, and April, I think. And teachers are selecting a path. They stick with the path for all 3 sessions and have 6 hours of in-depth. But what you notice if you look at this, this was really telling to me when we last talked on it. The word inclusion is throughout all of, the keywords that are in the strategic plan are found all throughout this document. Both inclusion, cultural competency, special education, things that we're really targeting. And it's a really strong mix of in-house expertise and outside expertise. So we're excited that this is coming up quickly after the holiday, and anxious to get it going. So kudos to Kristen's office for all the hard work and the teachers who've been offering to help. Special education, Evan mentioned we had a really productive meeting with CPAC and parents who chose to attend just 2 weeks ago, and we talked on an overview of the district-wide program. So we're just for the first time putting all the descriptions of the new programming in one place. It's still fluid, so that's got us a little anxious, but we needed to anchor it. So the slides are attached to my report, and they were shared with the CPAC group, and some positive feedback, a lot of questions, and good input to us on what we need to continue to clarify in terms of information sharing and ways that we can provide that. We've been working with the high school to get Best Buddies and unified track and basketball in place, so we've got an advisor for Best Buddies, and we can start to get that process going. We're really excited about what that will offer us. Erin Junkus, athletic director, is going to take on the unified track and basketball, so that's in its early discussion stages too. But the energy, just me mentioning those two programs, the energy that has been received based on just those comments has been fantastic.
Can you say a little more about what unified track and
Sure, yeah, unified track and basketball are combined teams of general regular education populations and special needs students, and they play together, and it's a very common setup. So they play teams from other districts and really have some competitive, interscholastic piece to it, and it's just a really big positive. Everybody benefits, and the same will be true of Best Buddies. The general education students benefit as much.
And look at the basketballs in the fall, so there's
Yeah.
plenty of options. Facilities aren't an issue,
No,
so.
right.
That's great.
So I don't know if we'll be ready for spring track, but I would think by the fall we will be.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
That's terrific.
It's great.
Wow, such
Such
great
a
stuff.
surprise that Aaron is gonna be the coach too.
No, he's not gonna coach, he's gonna organize, he's gonna get it started for us. He might like to, he'd probably like to.
He'd
probably love to.
I guess
He's a little busy though.
Weasel's waiting.
Yeah. School safety, we had a meeting last week, so we've been looking at that. We're rolling forward to some of our action steps. Probably the most significant will be when we get the Crisis Go app up and rolling we're gonna start piloting that soon. Sustainability, we met earlier, we're looking at our priorities. I have to say the energy coming from the schools is again outstanding. Composting at the high school is about to take off and be student-led. The advisors put out a request for help, and over 50 kids volunteered to help because they need to stand there and train their peers on how to compost or it doesn't work. So it's turning into a really strong student-led event, and we're excited to watch that play out. A lot more to come on that too, but that's the highlight momentarily. I've been working with the Concord Education Fund. I attended the fundraiser on Saturday night, which was really well attended and very highly supported. Our talk right now has been on, some of you will remember the campus advisory recommendations, which at the lower end of the list has greenhouse and outdoor classroom and some of those targets on there. They've offered to be part of that discussion, and Bryce McKnight is already engaged with us, and boy, did we have a visioning session. He wasn't even in the room, but he's contagious, so of how we could grow all of our own lettuce for all the districts in hydroponic trailers out back. I mean, it's just, the vision's going really big, so.
Convince the kids to eat lettuce.
Yeah, so we're
I want to rope
excited.
Paul Salou into that conversation.
Yeah, there's lots of options there. So we'll probably start with the outdoor classroom. It's a little more straightforward and gives Bryce a little time to get acclimated. Ruth and I are going to visit Minuteman Arc after the Thanksgiving break. We're working on a date with Jean. I am due at the Rotary Club probably in January. They're very interested in a middle school update, so that connection's been made. And I am working on a letter highlighting some of our concerns over recent substance use issues at the high school. We've had a pattern of 6 or 7 significant serious alcohol-related events, and our concern for kids' safety has grown fairly exponentially in the last month. We met the police chief and are outlining action steps following that, but we think the first step is raising awareness. So we're gonna write a collaborative letter before Thanksgiving that just puts it on people's radar. Vaping will be in there too because it's substance-related, but the alcohol is by far been the higher concern. A pattern we haven't seen here in a long time of choices and things like that. So it's a collaborative effort and community needed supported action. So
It's good we have the collaboration there. That's great.
Yeah, since they've all been police-involved issues, it's very good, yes.
Can I just mention my thanks for you being there Saturday evening?
Oh, thank you.
This Ed Fund fundraiser, it was a great event, but for Lori and Bryce to show up on a Saturday night to an event where, but everybody else is having a drink and they're trying to be professional and not able to. For you to come and spend time at something like that is a big give on your part, and it meant a lot. I mean, the ideas that you were talking about were then buzzing around the room later, and people were really excited about it. So that investment of time means a lot to the rest of us. Thank you.
Yeah, and just a highlight of the next week, you heard a little bit from Linda. Saturday is the Thanksgiving Senior Citizen Luncheon sponsored at the high school. I plan to stop by there. The Laramie Project, Willard has their international fair on Sunday. We have the Rotary Luncheon with Bedford, the annual football luncheon on Thursday at noon. Thursday afternoon, Representative Gouveia is here to visit the electric bus. That's just off the top of my head, right? So it's a busy time and a lot of really fun, exciting things going on.
Great.
I ask, the committee asked for this to know from Challenge Success, and I know that you had an exchange with them. Can you tell us a little more?
I haven't heard more than what I shared with you. I reached out to Challenge Success's East Coast leadership, who works with Mike and Justin at the middle and high school, and kind of posed the question that had come up, I think, during the goals discussion of a little bit of benchmarking and come assess our progress. They were back generously and said, that's a great question, we need a little time to think on it, so I'm waiting on a response from them.
So basically, they haven't done something like that.
That was the impression I got, right, so I'll let you know when we're back.
That'd be great. Thank you for reaching out.
In regard to your report, you talked about the innovative pedagogy piece. So I'll preface this with the word if. If you see any wisdom in having that group intersect with the middle school design education team, I hope you bear that in mind and help bring those two together when and how you think it would be wise.
They definitely will complement each other.
Okay.
And we're gonna talk middle school later, but Hanscom Friday was very inspiring, as have some of the other schools been. I think you're totally correct that the educational visioning that's about to happen at the middle school must complement, and certainly there's a few key players that have crossover, but we need to be very generalized about that so that those two visions land on the same page.
Thank you.
And inform one another.
I know that's a CPS, but
No, it's a great point.
germane to your report. Thank you.
Definitely.
Just listening to you and looking at this, it's exciting, the amount of collaboration and inclusion across the spectrum of stakeholders in these processes that are taking place, and I'm grateful to everybody involved for both the effort and the commitment to do this and to take the time to do it, and to create the ownership among the stakeholders.
Yeah.
It's exciting to see, and it's pervasive.
I agree. I want to add something.
Yes.
Just as we enter into the budget section, and I'm just looking at Erin's draft of the subcommittee, the budget subcommittee minutes, just reminding me, because I knew there was something I forgot. And so, as a bridging to the budget, we discussed, what role the subcommittee could play in the prospective budget, understanding that we don't budget through subcommittee. But the point raised and I think accepted is we should be, and we should all do this, but certainly the budget subcommittee should advocate, once we set the budget, there's an advocacy job that we all share. That so we should understand it as well as we can, and we should all agree on the bullet points that the talking points that we don't speak for the chair speaks for the committee, but we can agree on consistent points, and we have a mission to go out there, and make sure everybody understands it and we sell it, basically.
It's a good idea.
That's great.
Definitely, that's great.
Okay.
Right. Speaking of budgets.
Yes.
All right, Jared.
It's enthusiasm for this never wanes.
Well, I have to say
Only heard
this,
this about 4 times in the last 6 days.
and I said that, and he's
Still
like, I'll
excited.
talk budget all day long, because I love the budget discussion,
I get 68 slides for you.
Death by PowerPoint.
Is there an intermission?
Okay.
Snacks and drinks will be served in the lobby.
I just,
Okay.
while Jared's getting ready, I just wanna really publicly thank Jared and his office and the entire leadership team. It's still a lot of hard work. I mean, year 2 of zero-based budgeting is better than year 1, but if you're really gonna zero-based budget, and we can talk on what that means through the discussions here, it is a lot of work. You're really having to dive in and really look at where the money's gonna go and what it's gonna fund. And Jared's team, and I think your team continues to grow with Nikki and Ian and what they're offering on the business side, along with the principals and the central office leaders and how we're managing through that, plus all the way to the department chairs of both middle and high school as well. So it's very ebb and flow of vertical and horizontal process to get us here. So it always feels a little anticlimactic when we come in here because we've been spending 4 months trying to get to this, and it looks like this package that
So
just wanted to
clean,
sure
it
we
must have
say
been
that
easy,
out
right?
loud. Yeah.
I think one of the things that will be exciting going forward is by doing this, when we have initiatives that we want to do,
Yes,
we are going to have so much better understanding
Yes.
of the granularity of where the money's going,
correct.
that it will be much more likely that we can
Yes.
find ways to implement new initiatives. And, those are the kinds of things that we won't see until we've been doing this for a little while, but it's exciting.
Yeah, I think the first place you'll see it is in special education, which you generously trusted us to say we're gonna hire so that we'll offset with some of the savings, and you'll see that some of that's coming to bear already. And so I think to your point, it'll be very clear where the initiative lands and where the money's going, and it's not all gonna come back with savings attached, but this one did, so.
Well, and the conversation takes place at such a early level in the
Yes.
process
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
everybody can be informed. So that's where I think it's great. Thank you for your enthusiasm
Great.
and your work.
Yes. Excellent. Here we go. So this is a slide you've seen a million times, and you're going to see it a million more. I just want to explain again, the zero-based school budget process, we literally went through every line and built it up. We went through all of our staffing, we went through all of the salaries, whether it was FTEs, steps and lanes, substitutes, everything. We took a deep dive and continued the dive that we did last year. We looked into class sizes, we looked into loads on tutors and aides. Everything possible we looked at. And I think you'll see it be reflected in the numbers we're going to give you tonight. So the superintendent's recommended budget for FY21 is $35,444,885, which is 2.18% higher than the FY20 school committee approved budget. If you exclude the debt number, that increase is 2.83. This chart breaks down the recommended budget by DESI 100 function. As you can see, I broke down FY21's recommended budget and compared it to FY19's budget, FY19's transfer budget, the actuals in FY19, FY20 budget, FY21's requested budget, and then the difference in the percentage. There are some large drivers such as district leadership and administration, instructional leadership, and fixed assets, and some large reductions, including programs with other districts. So instead
Should
of
we ask questions along the way or when you're?
I think hold them, just because I think I'm going to answer hopefully a lot of them. So instead of breaking down the budget by DESI function, I broke them down into 48 different expense types. Some of these expense types included athletics, banking, contingency, contract services, debt, employee separation, equipment, fees, insurance, legal, etc. I also broke it down by 17 different salary categories. For something to be a budget driver, it had to have a budget difference from the previous year of $60,000. So the first one is the guidance salary. Guidance staff increased from 9 to 10 FTEs after the FY20 budget was formed, but through attrition, the additional FTE and projected steps and lanes are only causing the expense type to go up 5.75%. There is an increase in contract services, but mainly due to the increased amount in special ed transportation in the ink toner contract. Due to the ink toner contract, there is also a reduction in overall supply lines to help offset this cost. As part of our 10-year bus replacement cycle, we are requesting 2 new buses this year, 2 new bus leases. Our insurance lines are only increasing approximately 2.56% in FY21. This is partly due to some of our employees taking advantage of the high deductible plan option that the town introduced in FY18. This plan limits long-run growth in healthcare spending by encouraging beneficiaries to price shop for non-emergency services. Last year, we negotiated with the high school tutors, the tutor union, and put them all on salary. In the past, it was very hard to predict each tutor's consistent schedule to make sure we could encumber exactly the amount obligated to each employee. This was especially troublesome during last year's budget formulating process for me. Therefore, this number reflects 2 more FTEs for FY20 and monies for extra hours worked, such as the homework club. The amount for the 2 FTEs in the homework club is approximately $100,000, which means the real increase is approximately $41,822, or 3.96%, and not the 14.84%. Utilities are quite unpredictable. The increase is more in line with FY19 actuals and FY20 budgeted. We're keeping a close eye on the FY20's numbers and hoping for another mild winter. FY19 actuals was only about $3K more than FY20 budgeted. Well, actually was $3K more than FY20 budgeted. When doing the zero-based utility budget, we compare 5 years worth of actuals, look for any outliers. This is more of a budget correction. So overall, we identified $1,396,041 in budget drivers. So with the budget drivers, we identified some cost savings. So we identified $675,608 in cost savings. At this time, our charter school and school choice assessments are down $63,920. Due to all the programmatic changes, kids aging out, and tuitions, and the tuition students are coming in with from Carlisle and middle school, tuitions are decreasing $514,000. And debt is also going down $97,000. So I just gave a snapshot of what the early retirement incentive savings was for FY21. We're projecting the 6 FTEs are going to save us about $130,000 in this budget, which is already embedded, but that would have been the cost if they were still here.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that I've been constantly asked is everyone wants to see an FTE chart.
Mm-hmm.
So what we did is here's the 17 different types of FTEs, and what we did is we came up with all of the FTEs that currently make up this budget. So we have 203.78 FTEs, probably a little closer to 220 bodies, give or take. But an FTE is a full-time equivalent, and the way that we did this is a teacher, a full load is a 1.0, someone that works the full. A tutor is a 1.0 when they work 30 hours, 75 minutes a week. Same with the aides. Clerical staff, full-time could be either 35 or 40 hours. So that is how, and custodial staff, everyone else 40 hours a week.
So those are the total, not the difference. That's the total.
This is the total, correct, yeah. And that's 15 different salary types. There was 2 that I had no Because it said 17, 2 that I had that had no FTEs associated with it, positions that are no longer here.
Do you have a delta FTE total?
Say that again?
The delta over last year?
I don't, because we didn't really do the FTEs last year. I did, but we didn't have the same formula.
But even in the aggregate? You must have the aggregate.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm gonna just add a little history to that. When I arrived 2.5 years ago, we weren't keeping straight up FTE counts. We were mixing and matching. Stipends were in there, like there's just a lot of convoluted pieces in there. So to do the delta work, that's what we're trying to set up right now and Jared inherited some of, he was still cleaning that last year to get it to where we could do this. So this is, for good or bad, the baseline of making sure FTE equivalent really is equivalent. So we're gonna just have to ask for people's patience, but going forward, we'll certainly be able to show the deltas.
And sorry, Jared, you may have said this, for positions that are shared between the two districts, is that 50-50 or 60-40?
Yes, so some are 50-50, a lot are 60-40.
Okay.
And the ones that are actually shared, we have some in administration, clerical, HR, and maintenance. And the custodial staff are, there's 2 unions for custodial staff. In addition to salaries in the general fund, this is something that I wanted to show this year. We have 190, 311 going to the METCO grant, and then we have another 50,000 that offsets the campus monitors in a revolving account.
That's coming from the parking.
Coming from the parking. But those FTEs are included, just not the number. So special education tuitions, currently in this budget, we have total tuitions amount of $2,775,850. And then we have tuition offsets, which you'll see an offset line in the budget of $956,371. So I wanted to show the true amount of what our current obligation is for next year, and then what our offsets are.
The circuit breaker is a later reimbursement, and that's a worst case estimate as of right
That
now.
is right now, it's a worst case, but it's based on last year's, so it's gonna be close.
Okay.
Yeah.
Unless the new legislation goes through and
Correct.
we might have additional revenue for transportation.
Well, you can't say worst case, they could always dial back the formula, right?
They could,
Yes.
although it doesn't look like the wind is going that way right now.
We would
Looks-
regional districts.
Yeah, the way, the tides turned from a couple of years ago where they were rolling it backwards and we were losing percentages of circuit breaker, so.
So many regional districts are in the western part of the state and they're in dire need of help.
Which is good that we didn't have a rollover circuit breaker balance of over 550 grand. So we did not have that in the past. So that could take the blow off a little bit. So right now, we have about 41 out of district students, and we're projecting as of today 35. Very fluid, but that's what we're projecting today. So the number's going down.
Out of 1,200?
Total enrollment, 1,300 at the high school.
So another thing that I was asked to do was take a look at the benchmarking. So we have subscribed to ClearGov. ClearGov is a great website that everyone in the town actually has access to. And what they do is they compare our audited numbers from 2009 to 2018. And it's exactly what we send to them through DESE and our end of year report. So what we were able to do is we're able to pick our comparables. So for the region's purposes, we have 11 comparables. And these are the 11 that we are comparing some of our benchmarking data to. And there's a number of different reports, and I took the ones that I thought made the most sense, and I used the FY18 numbers. But again, ClearGov, you can go on there, and it's a good tool.
But excuse me for asking, but
Sure.
you're comparing the region to districts. Because Lexington is like
Correct.
7,200, but that's the whole district, so.
Yeah, so some of the things that would make the most sense when comparing is really comparing the per pupil expenditure cost that I'm gonna show you. FTEs is not one, I do show a slide on that, it's more comparable to say Lincoln Sudbury. But these are the ones that the union also has in their contract as comparables.
So Lincoln Sudbury is a high school regional school, so
Yeah,
that would
exactly.
be a very,
Yeah, the
very
numbers-
comparable.
And the numbers are very comparable,
Correct.
both
Yeah.
in household income, right?
Yep.
Number of students.
So the first one is the PPE costs, has a state average, and then, I'm sorry, I'm colorblind, I think that's red or green.
Yes, we're in red.
Red, okay. I should have done that before.
As
So,
well.
Second to the right.
so that's how I'm gonna refer to these.
Yeah.
For me, it's yellow.
So again, the PPE average is 20,189, and we're a little bit higher than that.
They just, listen. And these are, can you do it?
Yeah.
And these are like, probably the most, the wealthiest towns around here.
Yes.
This is the slide that's most impacted by the difference between a four-year regional and all of the other, except for Lincoln Sudbury. Because all of those districts, if you broke out their high school numbers, the high school numbers per pupil are gonna be higher than their average.
Right, of
Just
course.
the way it works, but it's one of the things, one of the challenges we have when we're doing benchmarking.
Correct.
AB is only high school too, right?
No,
No,
they're not
K-12
K-12.
full.
They would fill about 3
They're
years
more
ago.
7-12.
So the next one that I wanted to show was these instructional services, which is the 2,000 function. So right now, our 2,000 function is about 52% of our budget. That includes all of our teaching and instructional staff, a lot of the supplies, etc. So I thought this was a valuable chart to show.
So on a percentage basis of total budget, do you have that too?
52%
And
is the
we've got
2,000.
more or less track with this chart, in other words,
I think
Highest.
most, well,
among the highest in the country.
no, because if you take a look at Concord, Concord's is actually 76. Because this has health insurance, it has debt, etc.
Oh, okay.
So
So you
it's,
really can only compare with regions if you do percentage,
right,
because only regions have that.
So LS is your cleanest comparison, the
Yeah.
others are reference.
Okay.
But the other regional districts, even though they're mostly K-12, still have those
Sure.
expenses in
Yes, sure.
because they're
Yeah.
parceling.
Well, that's why
Right.
percentage.
They just
Yeah.
get
percentage of
spread
total
out of.
percentage of the budget is not the
12
same as what this is showing.
Totally.
Right,
Yeah.
so that would be a
13.
useful thing to have for the regional ones,
Mhm.
I would say. And, yeah, there's no other pure high schools we can compare with, other than LS.
Yeah.
Usually it gets down to LS, Algonquin, because you need the K-8s to be out of it separately.
Harvard's got a 6.
Yeah. Usually we end up with LS and Algonquin, and
Right.
that's about where it slows down.
That's-
Yeah.
Well, this, even though there are questions, let me just say thank you for pulling this together because this is the most
Yeah.
data and benchmarking that we've had from this clear stuff ever. So this is really helpful to
And
look at.
I've navigated around now, Nikki showed me, Nikki's a whiz at it, and now I know, so I can get more information.
A lot of
Terrific.
data at our fingertips.
This is great, thank you.
And you have access to, we'll be sure to
Yeah.
make sure
It's,
you know.
it's easy to navigate,
Yeah.
if I can do it.
Are you laughing at us?
No, I said if I can do it.
You can do it, if I can do it? I don't think so.
So this one might not be helpful. I was asked about FTEs in other districts. This is what I could find. So obviously Newton and Brookline, pre-K through 12. Dover, Sherborne, Lincoln, Sudbury, those are sort of our comparable.
But it's
This
not normalized to
is
school
total, it's
population.
based on its own.
And on a
Newton's
number of
student population
You
is
should
like
normalize
12,000.
uses.
What's that?
You should normalize to number of students.
Yes.
Yeah, I,
I mean, you have it in another slide, it's just math, right?
it is just math.
I know you're good at math.
I,
We hope.
No, I know he's good at math. You may not be good at
you
math.
hope, it's right. And this, just a snapshot of the 2018 student to teacher ratio.
Wow.
I would not have guessed.
So we
that right?
state average.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And Concord's, I think, is 12.5 to 1.
Wow,
But this is teachers.
right.
So the special educators, everybody's in that, and all the kids are in that.
All the 200s or 2000s,
Yeah.
I mean?
But not tutors, just.
Right,
Right, I think that's
tutors are
what
not
you're
included.
reacting to, is it doesn't include the level of support service people that we have, which is definitely a
Yeah.
more substantial
Which is
number
more
than other
substantial, okay,
districts, so.
that makes sense.
The average class size at the elementary and average section size at middle and high school, I'd say was in bandwidth of typical. We
Right.
tend to err on the side of low, but it's not so low that it would stand out necessarily.
Right.
So you didn't want to put 4/10 of a teacher on the bar chart?
Yeah, it doesn't do that for some reason.
It wouldn't look that good.
No.
Incorrect.
Like the iron
Part teacher.
And then the last one I wanted to show, and I don't know how helpful this is, it wouldn't let me put the numerical because it's all under 0. But this is the total teacher per student. And we're about 0.085 actually.
Teacher, that's the,
Teacher
that's the.
student. That's
corollary
basically
of
the
one
12.4 to
ratio.
1 and it's decimal, gotcha.
So it's just a
Okay.
graphic.
Yeah.
They're all pretty bunched though, huh?
Yeah, very similar. That's great.
So from that we go to OPEB.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to repeat a little bit of what I said before, just in a previous presentation, just to make sure people understand the OPEB and the differences in what we're projecting right now. But I stated that the new actuarial reporting standards had a positive impact on the district's OPEB funding schedule. Specifically, new governmental accounting standards require an entry age normal method compared to the previously used projected unit credit method. The new standards have improved the district's funding progress. However, underfunded FY19 and FY20 OPEB contributions will negatively impact future valuation. The district anticipates its completion of the June 30th, 2019 OPEB valuation by January 31st, 2020. OPEB estimates are highly volatile because they rely on estimating future healthcare costs, the healthcare regulatory environment, investment returns, demographic changes, and participant mortality. Accordingly, the FY22 funding amount is subject to change as a result of the June 30th, 2019 valuation. The table details the district's OPEB funding schedule as of June 30th, 2018, as a FY21 contribution of $548,087 is required to meet the actuarially determined 2038 at 100% funded target date. District administration recommends level funding OPEB contributions at $550 through FY22 in order to mitigate the FY19 and FY20 underfunding, but this is actually a decrease of $13,444 over last year's budget. So more to come on this, but it's good news. Here are the approximate costs for the health insurance for FY21. It's only a slight increase over the FY20 budgeted amount.
Yeah, that's pretty big. Knowing what this has been, 9 and 10, 11%.
Yeah, we've had huge increases.
So we're still having some of
Still
those, but
100,000,
we're doing a better job of
still
zero basing it.
7%.
And we are seeing some returns of that, people switching over to the hybrid dog.
So that's part of it,
That's
is
part
that
of
last year we gave them some new options.
Yeah.
To try to manage.
And those didn't factor in until well after the budget was settled,
Right,
so they're actuals now
right,
versus.
when I say last year, it was during the year, not before the budget, right?
Yeah, it's one of those things it's there because we've made that switch. As the
Yes.
switch
Okay,
works its way into our normal numbers,
You don't get that same.
we'll see the increases.
And you don't have our increase number for next year yet? We're thinking 8%.
Yeah.
8%.
So I should know this, but the retirees, which we're paying as we go, I mean, when they get to 65, they're on Medicare.
Medicare, yeah.
So is this the gap, or is this supplemental to Medicare?
This is the gap, this is the supplemental up to the.
Up to
60
Medicare,
60.
but once they're 65, is there another layer of extra benefits that this covers too?
Good question. I don't believe so.
So this is really retirees from roughly 60 to 65.
Right, and the cost is gonna go up, but
Yeah, but that's amazing that we have such an overhead, that OPEB itself is so large then, because it's really only talking about 5 years of population, and since we're paying as we go, it should always only be a, okay.
And this
let me get
is
you more information on that, yeah.
and this then would represent an offset to the early retirement savings too. 'Cause you,
Offset, what is that?
well, you,
To your point, anyone who retired through the incentive, we're picking this up a little bit early, so yes, we would consider
But the
that as
incentive
when
saving,
when we considered the savings that were in the earlier slide, we definitely factored in that we took a little bump in
Pick up a little on this end.
insurance benefits because they retired a little bit early.
but you offset the other insurance that you would pay if they were
Yes.
here, right? So
Yes.
I wanted to ask you that, is the delta, the savings of early retirement, so say a teacher that's top of scale retires and is replaced by a, bottom or
75.
middle of scale.
We use 75,
Masters for,
Okay, that's, so the savings is the delta.
yes.
and it's
Yeah.
just it's not an exact science,
Right.
but we use that gap, that number.
And it's net of the early, so that figure you showed is net of both it's all the little pieces, right? The
Yes.
OPEB, the early retirement.
Yes.
And then this is just our debt is going down, 97,000, it's gonna continue to go down. So unlike the Concord Public School side, the regional side is responsible for projecting revenue. The following list of items is the revenue we receive before we figure out total assessments to the two towns. Based on the projections we had to make this time last year, which is about 2 months before the initial governor's budget, state aid has been very good to us. At this time, we are projecting $132,318 increase in Chapter 70 over what was budgeted last year, a $143,972 increase in Chapter 71 transportation. We are recommending a decrease of our E&D contribution from $350,000 to $300,000. I'm expecting our interest to stay the same, but a $50,000 decrease in miscellaneous revenue. We're no longer getting monies for laptops that is going to go away this year. I'm also projecting a $10,000 increase in rental, which is based on actuals, and a whopping $477 increase in charter reimbursement. So the total estimated general fund revenue in addition to assessments is $3,831,261.
So the E&D, the 300 that you're kicking in, that's considered revenue when you move it out of E&D into the
Correct.
general fund?
Yeah, yeah.
The goal is to get all the way to zero. Given the progress we made, we talked with the chairs on, doing it a little slower. We don't need to take 300,000 at a time the way we did last year. We can do 50,000 a year, and it allows E&D to stay managed well, because we do have a cap of 5%, but it also just allows for the gradual phase out. So
Phase out of,
the goal
Bring it
would,
down.
my personal goal is to get revenue out of EOD to zero.
because you're steady state on the E&D
Yeah.
side.
Right.
Yeah. But now that we're
But, I
stable,
mean-
we can be more conservative.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't, that's a lot of, I guess, that's a goal, right? But you're steering a $30 million ship.
Right. Well, we were
300,000
super
is
aggressive a year ago,
1%.
is much of why we can say that.
Well-
We were almost $700,000 and we're down to, we cut it.
But I would take like from manufacturing, right? So
Yeah.
manufacturing uses statistical process control to make sure, the parts come out the same, right? So, but they will tolerate small deviations as long as the charting of those deviations stays within a bandwidth. Because, tolerances are tolerances. So to me, it's a tolerance, and as long as it's an under control tolerance, it's
Correct.
acceptable. That's what
Thank you. Yeah.
And I would say, again, from the long-term perspective, having looked at this for several years, and several of us wrestled with taking a lot out of E&D as revenue when we needed to, that was getting risky and didn't feel right. The fact that we're continuing along this line and cutting a little further from last year feels very good. So it just feels prudent, so thank you.
So based on the regional agreement, assessments are dictated by the October 1st enrollment. According to the October 1st enrollment this year, Concord had 76.1% of the enrollment share and Carlisle had 23.9%. This is an increase of 0.85% for Concord over FY19's October 1st number. The operating budget does not include debt or transportation. Therefore, we break out the revenue into three sections. The operating budget is $30,348,395. We then reduce that amount by state and other local revenue that I went over on the previous slide. Therefore, the amount to assess above Chapter 70 in local revenue is $27,192,134. Underneath that box, transportation is broken out, and we assess the difference in Chapter 71 reimbursement, which is $69,787. And then lastly, debt is broken out. So shown here is the assessments without debt and assessments with a decreased debt service. The Concord guideline was $900,111, and our amount that we're coming in at for Concord is $749,477, or 3.75%, and the guideline was 4.5.
And Carlisle's
And I'm sorry, and Carlisle
gonna
is
be in good shape, yeah.
is a negative assessment here. Minus 93% without debt, and with debt, they are minus 1.60.
That's good news.
That's good news.
David, if you want to actually contribute something.
Just the takeaway from that is we did have revenue increase and substantial special education savings, and those are the two real drivers that got us to that. And some, thoughtful budgeting on everything else to remain level service and high quality, high performing. And those two big, more money in and less money out just really equated to a really conservative budget.
So, thank you, that's really good. I got a couple of questions. In the beginning of your presentation, you showed some line item increases for administration and teacher compensation. Could you maybe go back to that?
Sure.
First or second slide, I think.
Right at the top.
That's one of the first ones.
Okay, so district leadership.
Yep.
So I know we filled out positions that had been vacant, right?
So in the 1,000, this is a difference because we hired a special ed coordinator at the high
Right.
school.
But also, didn't you fill some recently? You had only a part-year expense for, I forget, or this year you had a full, I can't remember when you did the hires.
Yeah,
Now you
that
were hiring.
team chair we hired in August,
team
so
chair I
it's
know.
been a full year.
But the other leadership staff, didn't you also have to add?
We didn't add, we've filled all the spots.
So that's really the
flush.
difference. Above normal.
Yeah.
And then on the instructional leadership side,
Correct.
is that I mean, I know we're in a contract year, so there's that, but is it the normal steps, lanes stuff?
Yeah.
But again, from an instructional head count, is there, 'cause I know you can give me a delta FTE, but generally, is it level?
Yeah, 200, the teachers are same as we have right now.
It's very level. What we'll do in the
120.
spring is give it a tightening up once kids have
Okay.
course
Yeah.
enrolled. So there usually are some, we have to do it at 0.25 at a time because it's a section at a time, but we will usually either reallocate and come out flush or pick up a little bit because we consolidate sections or things like that. But it's a very, very level service budget. Really no additional staff.
Can you go to the driver's page, please? Okay, so there, so the teacher salaries, that figures a higher percentage difference than the one on the 2,000 line item. There's more, what's going on there?
So this is just taking all the teachers and all the lines that they're in and subtracting it from the FY20 budgeted. The delta was 873.
But on a percentage, I mean, the dollar value doesn't mean much to me, but that's a 7% difference, but the teacher comp is like a 5-something percent difference, so. Why isn't that sort of roughly tracking if there's more people in there? What's different about the way?
Well, you also get lane changes, believe it or not.
Don't you have that in the other one?
Yes, but this is based on, so FY20 budgeted, we
Yeah.
had a number. All the teachers, all 120 teachers are in this increase right here, the 7.21. The one you're looking at, the 2,000, is a lot more than just teachers. That's all supplies, that's contracted services.
So this is a truer metric.
So our amount for teachers, if you look at this, is approximately 12 million. If you go to the 2,000 here, it's about 18 million. So there's 6 million more in the 2,000. Kristen Herbert, she's the director of teaching and learning. She's in the 2,000s. She's not actually in the 1,000s.
Okay, but this is a salary line. It's just not all teachers, is what you're saying.
No, the 2,000s is not just a salary line. We rolled up all of the sub 100 lines
Like
up to
supplies
the
and
2,000. They're all DESI. It's the way that DESI
Okay.
categorizes.
So the other one, the driver, is a truer picture.
Is an exact picture.
So that's a fairly significant
So the
increase in compensation. I realize the parts of it, but
Um,
it's just a point of note. I don't have really a question about it.
And that's common, anywhere from six to 8, believe it or not, every year. Some of our, especially our lane changes, could be 12% lane changes.
Yeah.
And anywhere from 5 to 7% or 4 to 6% increase in steps, and then you include COLA.
Right.
So that 4 to 6 is not including COLA.
Okay.
I think what you're pointing out, David, is a really important thing to point out in our big picture perspective here in terms of thinking long term, because it's true that is a big jump, right? It's a significant increase to say 7% increase, but that's how education works, right? This is how teachers' salaries increase, and you have steps, lanes, and scales, and it's basically what we have to do in order to have our staff of teachers. And I think within the perspective, it'd be easy to look at this and say, oh, well, teachers are up 7%, but we're only increasing 2%. That must be easy, to your point. It looks like a really clean, easy package, right? So we should be able to do that every year. But from what I have seen throughout this process, my understanding is that this year we have a particularly low increased percentage, based on a lot of the work and kind of changes and cleanup and zero basing that we've been doing this year and the last. And as we go forward, well, just to finish the point, just so that we can all know, going forward, we're not necessarily going to be able to bring in a 2-point-something% increase every year, because the savings that we've been creating this year and last are going to be built into them. But then we go back to having to deal with, you know, a potentially 7% increase in salaries every year. And to create a level service budget, you can't bring in a 2% increase on that.
Well, yeah, but the overlay, I take that point, but I think, you know, especially when I'm thinking about selling this budget, you know, many of us are used to 2 and 3% annual increases, right? That's like, so what people need to learn about what the added piece of information that may not be needed this year because of what you say, but is something to think about, is where I view it as an escalator, right? A teacher comes in, master's level, highly educated, relatively low salary for the coming from the private sector. But you're on the escalator, but then you get to a point, you kind of get off the escalator and you're just on your COLA line, right? So the demographics of your teacher population becomes important. If you have a lot of young teachers, they're going to show heavy increases, but the total load won't be that high because they start down low.
Yeah.
You have a lot of teachers, okay, we have a nice controllable increase, but boy, you got a big.
But it's a big load.
So adding that dimension to that, this will, I mean, maybe not again this year, but this is from time to time a focal point in the town, right? Because the town employees are, I'm not getting that, right? So, and they're not your friends here. So I think figure out if it'd be good to see that demographic and understand the interplay of that, and there may be a chart, maybe again, maybe not this year, but people need to understand that concept.
Exactly, what you're saying is right.
Which is why the incentive is beneficial, but the incentive reset the base. So now you do have
You can have a higher
a number of
increase
teachers that were
even.
brought in at very mid-level, and they're gonna get a bigger bump, but it's still cost savings to what would have
Still a
happened if
savings.
you
Compared to
got
what it
high
would
level.
So you get to your net savings.
You're making great.
Yeah, we just
One
have
of
to
the
be able to
things-
educate about that, because it's not clear.
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot of variables in that.
Exactly, without.
One of the things that I think will be clear for next year is when we're comparing this budget and the FTEs that I built to 203, and you say, Jared, why did that go up 7%? I'm gonna be able to say, okay, we have 126 teachers now, or 116 teachers, or less, and say, here's the story, here's what happened. When I did the budget last year, while I did keep FTEs, we were still trying
They
to
just
figure out
weren't
the formula.
equivalent, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I do know what you mean.
Okay, thank you.
Good point.
And it's so different from what most people are used to.
Yeah.
That it bears description, and it also has been shown over the years that this is actually advantageous to the district versus taking it to a more sort of corporate approach where you're gonna bring somebody in instead of coming in where they are in the first step, somewhere around the 5th or 6th step, and then you end up expending more money if you were trying to turn this into quarters instead of 16ths.
Because everybody that retired, just so you know, I budgeted them at 75. So if they came in any higher, that's gonna drive up that increase. It doesn't mean one person's getting a 7%. It just means that one person maybe came in at 30 grand more than what I budgeted because it's a special.
That was
teacher.
rare.
But, no, I know. So, but, very rare.
Yeah.
Only very specialized positions. Any other questions?
I'd like to put to the chair this question. When might we discuss how we could make a small line item add for purposes of trip support for students? Right now, we're putting this off on individual teachers or principals with monies that aren't budgeted to meet minimally our equity and inclusion goals. We know we're on a path toward some change that's going to address this in a more system-wide way.
So we've done some homework on that. Do you wanna talk to that?
So that's not a legal expense for a general fund budget. We can't put something in there to offset, say, field trips unless it's beneficial to all. What you can do is you can have a revolving account that takes in donations for specifically that purpose, but it's not something that we can set up in the general fund.
So when we've done this in the past, we've resorted to some alternate funding mechanism in every case.
So for trips that go out of the elementary and middle schools and every child is going because it's curriculum connected, then we budget for field trips. That is the only place the operating budget is carrying field trips, is when every child is participating, because it's completely curricular connection.
So a trip like the Washington trip that is offered to the whole community?
So that one we've managed more through the revolving account approach and taking donations and things like that to manage it. The operating budget hasn't been supporting that one. That said, every child who needs subsidies is getting it, so we can talk more on that when we go to the trips.
So they're getting it from a revolving account, not from the general fund.
Right.
But the revolving account is a donation.
Most of it's
not a line
donations.
item.
Most of it's donations.
But that would be legal to have as a line item on such a trip that is offered to the whole community?
If it's a revolving account, a donation, so the way that works is if something's donated, you have to use it on the purpose of what it's raised for. So that's not something that I can take a donation and offset a general fund budget line item number. It would all have to be through a revolving account.
I think when you're thinking about field trips and line item, it's more class trips taken to.
Yeah, those, I mean, when I talk about what we put on as the very
It's part of the
local
curriculum.
day trips that the younger kids are taking,
Right.
correct, not overnight,
Right.
great expense.
And what you,
Good.
if I understand right, so what you're saying is that there's simply no legal way to put, because it's not something that offered to the community at large, it's not something that can ever be as a line item. We
In the
have to
high
find-
school,
We have to find another solution.
yes.
So we have discretionary monies for certain kinds of hardships, but not this kind of hardship.
Correct.
So.
Thank you for this budget. It's amazingly good news
Yes.
compared to what we have looked at in past years.
So, any other questions on that, comments?
Just a reminder, since next time we talk budgets, it'll just be the Concord committee with the Concord Finance Committee on Thursday night and the Carlisle Finance Committee on Monday night. So obviously we're hoping, I know Heather and Molly are cued in for that, so just making sure you're all aware. We're looking forward to the conversation with them.
It won't be the first time we say this, but express our thanks to your team. Please.
Yes.
You've all didn't hear it. We'll be at the Concord Finance Committee this Thursday evening. And then at the Carlisle Monday evening. So,
We means.
we meet,
Well, we go present
One of
and
the three of us will
right,
go.
and
Usually
chairs
they're-
are planning to go, and everybody's welcome to come, anybody's welcome to come observe. We're not going as a committee and in session and discussing or anything.
No.
Lori and Jared present, and the chairs sometimes
So if you
say
didn't,
something.
you didn't understand it today, you can listen again on Tuesday.
well, and then I'm gonna remind you.
If you wanna hear it again.
And there's
Thursday
another,
night.
yeah, you have a
No
budget
CT.
hearing to hold December 3rd, so you are
Right.
going to listen again. We always do the first round for feedback, and then the
Yeah.
formal budget hearing is at our next meeting,
Right,
so.
we hear this information a few times.
Yes, that's good.
Which
This
is
is
good.
just the beginning.
I know.
By the time we get to town
You
meeting.
don't need to know it by
It's
heart.
not bad to hear that information multiple times.
Yeah, no,
Exactly.
You will have people asking about
Yes,
it.
it's
Yes.
not.
And when you haven't done this multiple times, it's a lot to take in the first time, so.
There's no quiz, there's no test.
No,
Oh.
I'm working on that. All right.
So, next item is the, capital.
Warrant article.
So that's Jared, up to us.
So I pulled up the wrong thing. So during the past few weeks, I've been in discussions with Gail, as well as members of the town, to see if we can get some updated numbers. Some numbers that I've been telling you that I heard on the street, such as 25%, may not, an increase in that cost may not be the actual cost. So that's great news. What I've asked Gail to do is I've asked Gail to update their numbers for the December 3rd meeting. In addition, I've asked them to give me a price proposal on what it would cost for them to go ahead and do the design. If we can get the design done potentially then we would have a better number for the town warrant. So I expect that any day now.
So if I understand right from you, remember the previous number of 790,000 and change included already 71,900
For the
in
design.
So now and we did not pay for this in the previous round that we did, no.
No, Gail did a feasibility study to see what was feasible, but this would be an in-depth, they would do all the permitting, they would do all the bidding, they would do all of the drainage and look into that. The other thing I forgot to mention is this is something that is exempt from bidding out. I would not have to bid it out. I could get proposals, but I do not have to bid it out. So I could just go to Gail, because it's a horizontal structure. It's drainage, and that's exempt. So we don't have to go to the lowest bid or,
For the design.
for the design.
And we feel, we feel confident that Gail is a good prudent choice because of the fact that they already know so much of the information. We would spend a lot more money and time going to somebody else and trying to educate them to have someone else to do the design.
And I think they can
Just
turn
wanted
it around.
Put that out there.
A thorough report quickly, more
Great.
quickly than.
So
Than anyone else. Agreed.
is the number that is of parking spaces here, and that was the number, if I remember well, that was in the previous warrant article, it was 104. In one of the options of Gale, there was a possibility to 125. In the same place, the precise saying where this discrepancy comes from. Because if for the same money we can do 125, it's 125. It's the same location.
It's
as
easy
I
math.
remember. Huh?
It's easy math.
It's the same location. So I don't remember, I remember revising everything in the past, but I don't remember what was the difference there. What I'm saying is that that's something that we have to go back to Gail, because there were these two options, there were a few options according to different structures
Correct.
in the other area,
Correct.
but the more compelling one
Was
was
the 125.
125.
I don't remember, I don't know if there's a reconfiguration of where the spots were lined or.
Yeah, there are a couple moving pieces there at the end in the report that we'll have to go back and double check, but we'll clear that up so we bring you
I don't think that we have
most
limit
spaces
ourselves,
we can.
yeah, precisely to this number.
We'll double check that with them as to the maximum amount they were able to put in. There were a lot of variables in that last version of the report as to what would take or subtract from 10 or 15 spots, so.
So we would hope to have this information at our next meeting.
Yes. We're just encouraged to hear it doesn't sound as exponentially increased as we had
Yeah.
thought.
That's very encouraging.
Because you're going in front of two FinComs, naturally will come up. Are you prepared to state that the intent right now is just to go for parking?
I've been saying it a certain way that you should all confirm is the way to say it, that right now it looks like the direction the committee is leaning is just towards parking. A final decision will be
Yeah.
made in December.
I think we could sort of take a straw poll,
Sure.
that that's
It's a good point, Dave.
where we are, because that,
Yeah.
I've taken from the conversation we had at the last meeting that we're heavily leaning toward just going for a parking warrant article.
I think that this was already discussed, that we want to
Right,
concentrate.
but if we're square on it,
But we haven't really had a,
Right, it
yes,
wasn't a-
we all agree to that. So is there anybody who disagrees with that approach?
I think it's an appropriate approach.
I would decided on supporting just parking, but I would not support both at all.
Okay, got it.
so I mean, I think as a talking point, I don't know if we need to vote it, but as a talking point for these FinComs, it starts to build the thinking around and the arguments for that, right? I mean, I think, again, you can guide the meetings with the FinComs the way you want, but if I was on FinCom, I would certainly ask about a capital article when talking to you, because I don't see it that often, right? So to say that and to give the reasons why that's the more important thing, I think begins to build the advocacy around it.
And we know many of the constituent groups that are going to weigh in around sustainability, around what we have done administratively, around around what we've done culturally within that high school to try to ameliorate this. And we're gonna need answers that look like we've done some work over the last year.
Yeah, I mean, even interesting research lately to see that Wellesley's offering an incentive for carpooling. They get the first pass at the lottery for parking spots. So I've been reaching out to talk with them. My guess is, as we've gotten concerned on liability, as long as we're not the mediaries setting up the carpool,
Or just encourage
we can
it.
encourage and incentivize it. So I'm trying to get to those layers of nuance because I think that's, if we can get to a place we're comfortable with that approach, their first spots go to kids who say they're gonna carpool. So,
I think that
I do need to.
sure, yes, of course.
don't get me wrong, I think it's a great idea, but I think there's a legal problem there.
Well, that's the work we need to do. I was surprised to even see it, so I'm just saying we're researching more options to see what's out there.
Age discrimination. Because only from a certain age and time on the wheel you can actually drive.
No,
your
I
peers.
understand.
Right, that's
So
what
there
we've
is-
talked about
there
before.
is actually not only liability, but it
Yep.
might fall into age discrimination.
Those have been all my points up until now, but then I saw it in print, so I would like to keep doing the research.
I think that when we ask them for design or offer to design, they should include in design options that are friendly to sustainability. Maybe parking for bicycles, rakes and stuff.
Yeah,
like
we're working
this.
on some of those things
All
even
those things
now.
should be integrated as options within the design.
Yeah, we're working on,
Charging stations.
charging stations are in
Charging
the
stations,
feasibility study that they designed.
Covered bicycle racks, you know.
Yeah,
things
I don't
like
think you have to be that granular. I mean, if you make the statement that, I don't know.
That's, you know, this is.
I guess Concord's different, but
Might have to.
recognizing the issue, I think the strongest argument, at least from my view, is the kids are driving. They're gonna park somewhere. They're gonna park in the road and they're gonna walk in the dark, or they're gonna do this, or they're gonna do that, so.
Or they're gonna get dropped off and then picked up again, which is.
Right, so,
twice
right, I
that.
think those are good arguments to make, you know, holistically, you don't have to show a lot of data. And yes, so we recognize that the safest alternative is to get the kids in their car on the lot, parked, and go to school.
Well, the safest alternative is to take
The
the
bus,
bus.
okay.
There's
Second
no question
sentence.
about that, but I know it
Of the
doesn't work
population
for
of
everybody.
driving age kids
So I
who
just wanna
want
make it
to
clear, our
drive,
buses are really.
who are enabled by their parents, that's the safest. And
I agree.
sustainability and all the other things, but in the context of what you guys said, you know, juniors and seniors are gonna wanna drive.
I agree with you, but
And you multi-car households that
17-year-old
enable those
drivers are
kids to
safer than
drive.
the bus.
I think that we'll agree on this, but I think that all those argumentations were brought already last year. And still, there was lots of, so we have to try and work out with those groups that have,
Well,
because nothing will say today about the fact that they drive, and that will be new.
you know, again, each town is different, but I think the Carlilian view, since everybody drives in Carlisle, there's nothing you can do without getting in an automobile, is not at all about whether they're driving or not, it's how much it costs. So if you say, you know, we're narrowing the scope of the project to the minimum parking we feel is necessary for these reasons, safety, sustainability, you know, I think if that argument is believed and they know that you're keeping a lid on the total cap expense, I believe the Carlisle view will be great. You did what you needed to do, and you're showing discipline and all these other reasons. Concord, I recognize that there's all these other layers of complexity, but you know, I still believe that the message that we've coalesced around a single issue, and that's our important issue. And by the way, couple it with the debt service chart, right? I mean, that's a pretty compelling story. Yes, we built, you know, it actually wasn't that expensive, but we built a big new school. Look what's happening. Debt service is going down. And we're not going to spend nothing. I mean, we're spending, again, points could possibly be raised. We buy buses out of the operating budget. We're doing the safety stuff out of the operating budget. I mean, emphasize that in that, you know, 3% or whatever, there's a lot of things that could be called capital expenditures that we just expense.
Right.
So when we come to you with a capital article, like,
Correct.
it's not a odds and ends of everything. It's just the one thing we're serious about, and this is why we're serious.
It's a good
You
point.
know, to me, that's like, okay, they're doing their homework. We give them the benefit of the doubt. They're managing.
Okay, good, so does that give you enough to
Yeah, I think we can.
run with and
make
speak
that
to the crowds?
That's
Great.
So are we done with that conversation? We're still doing some background work to support a discussion on the OPEB Trust Committee. So I would ask for a motion to table that item.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so moving on to our last one. Vote to approve the gift from Youth Lacrosse. Why don't we first have somebody read off that motion and then we'll find out about it here.
I would move that the Concord-Carlisle School Committee vote to approve the gift of fence installation, SCCHS, from Concord-Carlisle Youth Lacrosse as outlined in the attached document. Thank you.
Seconded.
Thank you.
So they're tired of chasing for the lacrosse balls in the woods
I've
and
heard about this.
offered to help fund the fence, which seems like a win-win because we use the field extensively, so we will benefit also. We're grateful for not just complaining, but offering to help be part of the solution, and we're hoping you'll approve this so that we can work on installation.
This is a great collaborative win-win. We really win in this one.
I'm sure some of those balls end up on the railroad tracks.
I'm sure they're.
Yeah, the more we can do to keep them on the field, the better.
This is the grass field.
Yeah,
Yes,
Up the
behind
grass
the
field,
behind the
yes,
building.
behind the
Behind
No,
the-
I'm just
wall.
being clear,
Yes.
that people don't think
Yes.
it's the turf, which is Concord turf, right?
I-
Was it about $2,400?
Yeah, $2,420 is the quote.
Is there, I'm asking, I don't have an opinion, I don't know enough about it. Is there an issue with materials they use for those fences? Not going into all kind of discussions later on, like the turf and stuff? There's no such issues, I'm asking,
No.
I don't think so.
I think we're using
I just don't want
Metal
to.
painted fences.
Yeah.
fence will match what's
Yes,
currently
it's
there,
there.
which clearly past the.
Don't want to see a fence going up and then cry out about the material, and I think that Wally should be more informed about such things than I.
Yeah, I think we're okay there.
Great.
Any other comments? I certainly would thank Youth Lacrosse for undertaking this and providing the funding. Happy to provide some grass to put the post holes in. So all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. I would take a motion to adjourn.
So
moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I would ask that we take a 5-minute break.
We can do that. Quick 5-minute break, and then we will continue with the Concord School Committee meeting. Back to order. And we get to talk budgets again. Jared, ready? You're up again. It's CPF budget time.
All right.
Can we just say it's more or less the same? Sorry.
No.
It really isn't more or less the same.
It isn't?
They're unique.
I didn't say that it is, I said it can't be the same. And it's a definition of more or less.
All right, so here is the FY21 Superintendent CPS recommended budget. We took the same zero-based approach. Everything was reviewed, the same as the districts. So the superintendent's CPS recommended budget is $40,795,072, which is 3.57% higher than FY20 school committee approved budget. Again, this chart breaks down the recommended budget by DESI 1000 function, compared to FY19, the actuals, FY20's budget, FY21's requested, and then the difference. So the difference is $1,392,711, which is about $150,000 higher than the Concord Finance Committee got. Is that really small?
We're just trying to keep the heat in the room. Close the door. Sorry.
It was the
No, they're
font.
talking.
Sorry for the font if it's hard to read.
That's okay.
So again, instead of breaking down the budget drivers by DESI function, I broke them down to 37 different expense types. At the high school, I had 48. Some of these expense types include, again, contingency, contract services, employee separation, equipment, longevity, teacher stipends, and about 16 different salary categories. Again, for something to be over budget, it had to have a budget difference from the previous year of over $60,000. The first is the salary admin. While it shows we were up almost 27%, this is mainly due to the hiring of a middle school team chair. The budget amount for next year is $126,075.
Team chair, that's special.
Special ed, team chair, yep. Aide salary is up, but mainly due to steps. The principals and assistant principals line is up $423,743 because we added 3 elementary school principals. They make up the bulk of this amount. All 3 principals were hired within, and their teaching position was not backfilled. Which is the reason why the next line, the teacher salary line, is only increasing 1.59%. If you included the monies that were transferred into the principal's line, teacher salaries would be up $767,000 or 3.49%.
Are you going to fill in those positions?
No, we reallocated, so that those folks have stayed with about 0.2 of the position they had before. They were either math or technology specialists, and then they're taking on the assistant principal roles. And we've just gotten creative with reallocation of other staff, tutors,
So what
other
we see
supports.
here is what will happen. It's not
Yes,
that later
that's
we
the
will
long-term
see
plan.
more.
Yep.
And like aides, tutors are mainly up due to steps. As part of our 10-year bus recycle plan, we were requesting 2 new bus leases for next year. Special ed tuitions.
So excuse me, the 2 new buses are
2
on
new bus
top
leases.
of the new, or that's the same 2 that we had? in the region?
So 2 for the region,
And
2
2
for
for-
CPS,
okay.
so 4 in total. Yeah. So if you can read that, special ed tuitions are showing an increase of almost 312,711, but that's a little misleading. We are currently projecting 7 less students than we currently have, but our circuit breaker offset in FY21 is 299,000 less than what we had in the FY20 budget. There are 2 main reasons for this. One, less kids are going out, so less reimbursement. The other, we anticipated having $150K of the carryover from FY19 to help plug in for FY20's budget, if you remember that from last year. At this time, I don't anticipate us having any carryover to plug in for FY21's budget like we did last year. So we're really not up too much. It's really just the way that circuit breaker was budgeted. And again, utilities, like at the region, they're unpredictable. The increase is about 10%. It's more in line with the FY19 actuals. Again, we're keeping a close eye on FY20s, but we think this 10% is going to be fine for next year. So overall, we've identified $1,546,338 for budget drivers. So we had a few cost savings. So to offset the budget drivers, we identified $234,574 in cost savings. Our contract services are decreasing approximately $166,769, but between special ed and maintenance, we are down $258,891 in this expense type. In both departments, we are doing more in-house with our own employees. But special education transportation is going up $65,000, and our toner contract is was added in a contract service. Used to be in a supply line, so that is the reason why it's only a decrease of $166. And then salary is down for clerical staff. That's more of a budget correction, and the FTE stayed the same. And the projected early retirement incentive savings for FY21 is about $394,659 we projected. So again, I broke the FTEs out. Here's 12 categories of FTEs. And also included in this is some administration, clerical, HR, maintenance staff that are split. Our overall FTE excluding transportation is 375.59. And the budgeted versus requested cost is there as well. So in addition to the general fund salaries, we have offsets a little bit more than we had at the regional level. 290,000 are METCO, Title I salaries as well, and $140,000 for tuition offset that were offsetting teacher costs. And I'll get into that when I explain the preschool expenses. Special education tuitions. So the total CPS tuitions for next year is $2,297,660, and our offsets are $1,050,906. And I put, you see that the circuit breaker last year's offset was $950,000, and right now we're projecting 300 less. Currently, we have 27 out-of-district students, and as of today, we're projecting 20. Again, very fluid, but it's going in the right direction. So I did some more benchmarking. Here we have, I believe, 13 comparables compared to the 11 at the region side. And here are the ones that were chosen. And it's pretty much the same type graphs as the last one. The first one, per pupil expenditures versus the peer groups.
There's a few more simply comparables this time. K-8 schools, Carlisle. Yep. Lincoln, Sudbury. Yep. A little bit more to compare to.
So again, this is our 2000 function. And then total FTEs. And student to teacher ratio. Again, these are all 2018 numbers.
Right.
So the CPS budget has 7 different budget locations. We have the preschool, we have the district-wide elementary, we have Alcott, Thoreau, Willard Middle School, and district-wide. The following 7 slides summarizes the expense categories by location. The preschool budget decreased 14%, mainly due to the $140,000 offset that we got that is new to this budget this year.
Can I just, because several of you are new, that was revenue that's always come in for the regular education, general education students who attend the preschool. However, up until last year, it was going to the town general fund. So through Jared's team and research, we realized that it didn't even require a town meeting vote because it was tuition money slated for a public school program. All the committee had to do was create the revolving account to accept the tuitions. So the town was very supportive of that. Even though it didn't require a town meeting, we certainly communicated with them. And so now those tuitions are directly coming as offsets to the teacher's salary, which is indeed the design of the tuitions. So that's a positive, and it certainly helped our bottom line to be able to account for those funds.
Before it went to the
Town general
and was
fund.
allocated to us as budget.
Well, it kind of, to your point, we
Had
had to, we were paying all the costs of the salaries, which would make our bottom line bigger, and we request it through the big picture process. Now it's the direct offset that it was intended to be.
More streamlined.
So we get about 140, like I said. In addition, we reduced the contract service line, and that's gonna be a theme that you're gonna see, the special ed contract service line. So overall though, if you took out that offset, there's actually a 5.3% increase in preschool. District-wide elementary is decreasing 26.87%. The main reason for this is we had our tuitions in two locations. We had it in district-wide elementary and we had it in the middle school. What we're doing is we're moving it out of district-wide elementary and the middle school and move it into district-wide one account. And that's really the biggest driver on this. And you'll see the clerical, that was a budget correction.
So if you took that away,
What's that?
if you took so it's district-wide elementary, except for that change?
No, what we did is the tuition's right here.
No, I get that. I'm saying,
Oh, okay.
what's the, if you sort of took away, is there an increase or decrease for?
I should have done that. There'd be an increase of about 80,000.
Okay.
Which is 3%.
Excuse me for a second, can I, we got only, all of us got only the line item budget. Can we get this presentation?
Certainly. Yes, we always post it after this meeting, we'll certainly
Yeah.
give it to you.
Yep. And then there'll be a quiz. So.
Yeah.
He was looking for one, so send it to you all.
It's open book.
That's bad. But no questions after you get it.
Right.
And like I said, I have everything that's built behind these lines.
Right.
So if there's something that sticks out, let me know. But for the most part, the main reason why this is down is due to the tuitions. Alcott, so Alcott school budget is increasing 3.79%. Special education contract services are down 13.36%. There's also a decrease in the aids line in FY21. The line that may jump off the page, if you can read it, is the salary for principal, assistant principal, going up 91.7%. That money was in the teachers' lines for last year and it offset.
What is stipend teaching?
So in the CTA contract, there's a very extensive, Kurt can speak to this at any point, extensive list of stipended positions, most at the middle school for after-school clubs and sports and for K-8, pre-K-8 leadership positions. So what we've done is try to be sure we can really track some of those. So what you see there, because it's just Alcott, it adds up over the course of all the schools, but at Alcott it's marginal because most of it's middle school.
So these are all staff with specific extended duties that are negotiated when contracts come up.
Middle school coaches, after school clubs, it's mostly student support, student extracurriculars.
It's a much bigger number at the region.
And this one will add up once you get it across all all four schools, it can be a couple 100,000.
Yeah.
But at the region, the high school's more than that.
And we moved a lot to district-wide, the ones that are in the schools is specific for that school.
Right.
Some, K through 5 coordinator,
Chair.
they're district-wide.
That part hasn't come up.
So Thoreau is increasing 3%, 3.01. Again, you see a pattern here with the special ed contract services going down almost 53%. Same story with the principal's line and the teacher's line. That line is jumping up. It would be in the teacher's line. There was also a savings through attrition in the teacher's line as well. Willard is increasing 1.58%. Contract services are down 48%. The professional development line is going down. The reason for that is we had money in there for Wilson training. And again, the same story with the principals and assistant principals line. Also in the teachers line, because it is a negative, there was savings through attrition as well. So the middle school is it's 2 pages. So it's again, contract services going down 32%. But the big number, and I can go back to this slide, is the tuitions you'll see there. So we removed $458,990 from tuitions. You move that to district-wide. There was some increases in FTEs for special ed related items. So if you put that 458 back, the actual increase is closer to 7%.
Can you just go to the previous slide? So is that?
So yes, so teachers are up 6.52% in the middle school.
And where was it the? There's another big one.
Oh, I'm sorry, the admin.
That's what I was,
I'm
is that
sorry.
the, is that the chair?
So admin is the middle school team chair that is in an
That's
admin line.
Okay.
Um,
Sorry about that. Yep. Thanks.
And then district-wide, so again, this is 2 slides as well. The increase is 21.74%. I did ask for an increase in our contingency of 25, so you're seeing that 20% increase for next year. And a couple other things to point out: contract services are up 5.32%, and that is mainly due to the ink and toner, as well as the special ed transportation. That is a district-wide expense. Again, the clerical here is a budget correction. And then on the second page, tuitions. So here's where I added the tuitions line. So you'll see the $1,246,754 for tuitions. That is our tuitions minus the offset.
Pre-K-8.
Yep.
So I'm sure that because it's not a clear line item, I'm sure that if we ask this question, we think of the 25,000 increase of contingency.
Yeah. Really, with the budget, 125 this year, I feel is not enough. And with the contract here and so many of the unknowns, I asked for an increase.
There's a lot that happens between now and the execution of this budget in September.
Yes.
And because we've budgeted so tightly, we need to know we've got contingency if a staffing needs comes up or a tuition comes up that we hadn't planned for. And we just needed a little more cushion. Jared was pretty nervous there for a while. So.
On 120, to go with 125 last year was.
No, I don't doubt it. I'm just sure that.
Yeah, it's just for the unknowns.
It was tight, yeah.
Whoever we have is a non.
Or uncomfortable, I'd say,
I mean, I think we're getting to a place where it's, the more special education programming we build, the less risk we have for those tuitions, because we have more options that are more likely to keep kids here. So that's growing to give us a little more security, because we're down in the real low levels of teaching, class sizes and caseloads and all of that. We're very adept at knowing staffing availability and do we have someone we can reallocate if a one-to-one need comes up versus just automatically hiring. So it's getting easier and easier to not have to rely on just contingency, because there's other options. But you still need some money there that allows for the unpredicted, because it could be a whole bunch of other stuff too.
Right.
So.
That is it.
So in the big picture, for Mr. Banfield's benefit, we are below the guideline if you combine the 2 budgets.
So
You say that into the microphone, Mona.
So the guideline for the high school, I believe, was 900,000. We came in about 150 and change below that, and then this is about 150 more. The delta is.
It looks like we set it up to work out that way, we didn't, but it did work out that they were fairly flush with each other. So.
Okay. Good work.
Yeah, no, I don't have any more questions. I would just say thank you for clearly bringing us a budget that is exactly what we need. I mean, it's,
Yeah.
you know, aside from the obvious, it was zero-based and built from the bottom up. This was clearly not, you know, an effort at negotiating the guidelines or anything like that. This is what we need, and this is
Yeah, and
what we're gonna ask for.
You know, and I
If it's
started
less than the guidelines.
to say this to the leadership team and to the union leadership. This kind of budgeting process doesn't mean everything stays exactly the same year to year. It's dependent on the needs of kids. So you might lose a section of kindergarten at one school because the enrollment's not gonna support that. You might lose some tutors at a school because the needs of the kids have changed. So I do think that's a message I wanna keep sending because they're not riffs per se. They're really studying what we need. And rifts, in my mind, come up because we've got a budget crisis of some kind going on. This is zero-based budgeting and really basing it on the needs of the kids. So I just want to be sure we're all clear because it has more impact pre-K-8 than it will at the high school, that kind of work, because you know we have a bubble group at Alcott that doesn't fill in behind it. Willard's got some low class sizes at K and 1. We are reducing sections there, while we leave room to know that if it fills in, we need to add it back. So a lot of moving pieces when you do it this way, and it doesn't just look the same year to year to year. And that's those are things we need to keep talking about.
That makes sense.
Speaking about this, there was a discussion, or you said to come to a discussion about rezoning, no? Was it?
Redistricting.
Redistricting.
So we're looking at the numbers. There's a 70 student discrepancy between Willard and Alcott. So we're studying what those options are.
We also have a big construction possibility in the West
In West Concord, correct.
So,
Yep.
this is a
So
lot
we're
of
keeping
moving
our
parts.
eye on all of that. We haven't made firm decisions if we're gonna make any changes.
But if
We'd
there
have
be
to decide
changes,
by the-
population changes, there'll be a corresponding movement of the same funds between.
Sure, and that's actually quite a bit of the work
Moving
we've been
parts in
doing is looking at equity across the 3 elementary schools. Doesn't mean they all get the same. But really starting to balance out, you know, if Willard's got fewer kids with different needs than Alcott's big population and needs there, what is equity? And we started through Jared's work, we now have the data that we can put in front of us as a leadership team and look at what that looks like and really have those discussions. That's actually, as we met with every principal, we put the data from all 3 schools in front of them, which is a first for us, so. Equity and the same don't mean the same thing, so we're looking at those population swings and gonna start to if we make any changes for the fall of next year, we need to start to get into that fairly soon.
Yeah. Is there any concern looking forward with these possible increases in student population that we might exceed the spots we have in our elementary schools?
Overall, no.
Okay.
I think it's gonna take some of the work we were just talking about, potentially. I think we're gonna. Yeah.
This is the last school we're gonna build?
Yeah.
And we,
Yeah.
yeah.
The elementary class sizes in the lower grades are smaller, so there's
I
some
saw
room,
that,
there's
yeah.
some room there right now
Yeah.
to still be fairly stable and still absorb some income.
I just feel like there's a big turnover coming. I don't know why. I mean, I look down my street and it's,
Sure.
you know,
Come to
a lot
my
of 80
street,
years.
come to my street, you'll feel better.
Anyway.
I wonder if we
A big project or two.
dive way down and speak to swings in summer school planning. A regular ed piece, a special ed piece. It looks like one is relatively stable, one you've made some shifts.
We've had extensive conversation on summer school. You know, we've talked about this in the past and really looking at our model. We started with a really big regular education program that was welcome to everyone. We scaled that back to by invitation with some specific needs. We continue to refine the criteria. Some of what we struggle with, it's a positive struggle, but families are on vacation and things like that and trying to make sure we're maximizing the resources and the opportunities for kids who need it.
Mhm.
It's very atypical for a district to have any regular education summer school services, so I'm gonna qualify that while I say that's part of the lens we're looking through. Ruth's come in and already given summer school a look in terms of what she thinks we might do differently. So we've been also combining and looking for efficiencies of scale. We used to run 2 separate programs. We're now elementary, we're putting all in the same place and differentiating services within the location, which is far more cost efficient. So there's been a lot of discussion of summer school and doing more with less and really targeted service provision rather than an aggregate service provision during the month of July.
That should serve us
Great.
well.
Yeah.
Good, thank you.
Great. One question, I almost forgot. Can you just remind me, Jordan, in buses, we have 2 new leased buses in each budget. When did we go, there's always been a debate of purchasing versus leasing.
When did we go to
Thought-
the
do
lease?
I thought we were heading the other direction. Are we back to leasing?
Well,
Or
I inherited leases.
Yeah, we went to leases
There were leases.
because we couldn't afford anything
Right.
else.
See,
But, go ahead.
Can I- so speaking more on the regional,
Mhm.
you want to, if you buy them, you get, it comes towards chapter 71 reimbursement. So if we bought 5 buses one year, and the next 5 years we didn't, we would get that lump sum chapter 71 up front.
Right.
By leasing, you're getting that every single year. So that's
Oh.
one strategy for
Okay,
leasing.
so that's an advantage
Yeah.
leasing.
And that's
I've never really
the big
heard that.
strategy for leasing.
Okay.
You know, the rates are low. I want to say
Yeah.
sub 3.
Borrowing is like.
Right.
So
So now's not a
it's
bad
about
time to
30.
be leasing.
Right.
Okay.
I think it's an annual conversation
Mhm.
Yeah.
probably. We're
Mhm.
finding that what we're doing right now is working and it's refreshed the
What's
fleet,
the-
so we're in so much better shape than we
What's the
were.
look forward?
So,
I think after this year, I'm at least gonna have the monies in there for it to go forward with 2 a year.
What about?
So that was the build, because I had to keep going up.
And what's a typical lifespan?
100,000 miles, so 5, no,
yeah,
10,
yeah.
For the
we
average.
tend to drive them a lot longer than that, so.
Yeah.
5 to 10,
150,000.
which is, but yeah. So 10 years, which is
I mean,
a
it's
lot.
helping, but we're not going to Acton.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we after 08, we drove the buses a lot further than we had before that.
Yeah.
And which was one of the reasons we
We're
had
catching up.
a big buy, which is when we actually transitioned from capital expense to lease. It was the only way we were gonna pull it off, and we had some we would have had to have some buses on the road that we just were beginning to think weren't safe.
Right, and the start time changed.
Yeah,
required.
so,
Yeah.
and the other piece, so, these are 5-year leases,
5 year, yeah.
and we own the bus at the end of it.
We own the bus, I think we buy it for $1.
As I
Yeah.
said, that's-
So it's basically, because of the rate, the lease rate's not particularly different than what we would bond out at.
Sure.
It makes
Makes
sense.
Makes sense.
If lease rates went up,
We'd accept
because
that.
lease rates, in a rising interest rate environment, lease rates are gonna go up faster than our average interest cost, because we're at AAA
Yep.
rating, and lease rates don't reflect that kind of credit quality.
Thank you.
I think the
That makes
decision-
sense. That's good. Thank you. Helpful background.
I think the decision how long you keep a specific bus should be made by the fleet manager according, their.
Oh, of course, yeah.
It's
Oh,
not-
very
it's
much
not-
it
It's
is,
not
yes.
according
Right.
to, we have to
No.
change it.
Yeah,
We have 3 mechanics, we listen to them.
What are the chances or the prediction to getting more electric buses?
Yeah, so we hopefully are gonna be getting one this summer. And then we are hoping to reapply for another bus this summer when the VW grant comes up again, we're hoping. So we're hoping this summer but the cost is the cost of a lease.
Yeah.
I mean, the buses are so expensive right now that they, basically it costs us as much as it would cost, it's about 4 times the cost of the bus.
So with the grant, we still pay the same as we would
Yeah.
pay.
Right.
But the
It just
the
makes it.
battery life now is, 100 miles.
It'll be
compared
interesting to compare the new line.
Yeah, and the thing is we want to get a separate one for our mechanics, because now that they can compare the two they've learned a lot, but they're only working on one. If they're working on 2 side by side, they said it's easier for them the trial and error on the process.
I mean, the good news is the bus was rebuilt, the engine was rebuilt about a year plus ago. It was completely unreliable up until then. Ever since that, it's been a regular run, and we're
That's
actually
good.
running it daily to bring kids to and from school. And we've even started to be able to do some daytime field trips, which that's our confidence growing in it too, that it can take that mileage. So it's gotten better and better, and it will be exciting to get
It's a little
brand new
struggle,
one.
but
It was definitely a struggle at the
It
beginning.
was in Canada
yeah.
when I was
Yeah.
there.
We were the pilot, and it showed. So.
All right.
Great. Any more questions? We're done with that. Great.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Jared. It's been really helpful. Let's move on to a middle school update. CMS building project update, that is. There isn't too much, let's see, some of the update we went through last time, but the biggest news is that we have chosen a designer. Really exciting news. We've chosen SMMA, which, as Jared tells me, is Sims, Maney, McKee, and McKee Associates, known as SMMA. They have great experience, showed great projects. They've worked in Concord before on Elcott and Thoreau. They've been working in Lincoln. And Cork can speak more to them again, because he was a central part of the design choosing.
If you choose to look at 9 hours of an interview process, which I would urge you to do, you, I think, will come to the conclusion that we will be on very sound footing architecturally with this firm, design qualifications, and equally so on education. Yet, that's where I think this administration and the school committee will push them hard. I think that's my
Fair.
summary.
Yes.
And I want to
So
thank
that's
Cord and Lori and the rest of the people on the design subcommittee for their hard work. Because I can't even imagine how tired you must have been at the end of that process, because it sounds like you went five
We did.
strong
We
candidates.
did.
So it probably was not an easy decision.
No, it was not. It was not.
Every
an
time you
easy
hear
decision.
one of them,
No.
then you kind of like, oh, that's.
In fact, it was so difficult at the end that there was brief but serious consideration. Do we just extend our decision-making time? And I think to a person, the understanding was, no, that's not going to add anything. We wish that it would, you know, that somebody would be more enlightened in some way, shape, or form. But we had what we had for information, and we were prepared to act on it.
Thank you.
I think that the school visits have proved invaluable so far. I missed the last one, but that's where we're learning a lot about the confidence that some very respected middle school educators have in some of the ways that design can support learning and learning can inform design.
We heard it again Friday.
It's pretty powerful. And we're not getting inconsistent messages. That doesn't mean we should relax, however, because Concord is going to do it Concord's way. But nonetheless, I think the visits should continue and are tremendously valuable.
Yes.
Yep, so that was the next part of the update, in fact, which is that a lot of the committee visited Hanscom Middle School recently. It was a fabulous visit. That's a fabulous school. And as you say, it's interesting the way you put it. They teed up the whole tour and story of their experience with the concept that they were amazed at how the new building and the design of it to support the education that they had envisioned really, truly supported a transformation of educational experience in the school, and then walked around and showed us how that happened. So it was really, it was very educational. For me, it was eye-opening, it was inspirational to see how the design of the building really transformed education for this school. It was really neat.
And that's not without a very robust plan to go with.
Right.
Absolutely.
It's an intentional transformation, not just we get to the new school and do
Right.
things.
And things happened,
Yeah.
No, it was, exactly.
Yeah, I think the key
Planning
word
for
there-
years in advance to enable that.
the key word there is intentional.
Right.
What impressed us about some of these firms was the care and concern they had about returning to what they had designed to see if in fact teaching and learning, real-time behaviors in that school were what they hoped the building would inspire, or were kids and teachers using it in a way that they had not predicted, had not designed for. Because if they can make a convincing case, we're doing this to achieve that, and then it really happens, they've proved their mettle very nicely. And that's what
I did leave Hanson grateful we get to work with our own educators and develop that vision rather than have to execute the Department of Defense's vision
Yes,
of
I
educational in the future. So,
It's true.
a lot of complexities at the
So-
Air Force Base.
Yes.
Yeah, so we're excited to work on our vision.
Yeah.
The committee's also working on our charter. Each of us was tasked with kind of the next step in creating the building committee's charter, which was taking categories of goals and visions that we had all brainstormed and summarizing those. So Thursday morning we'll be working on that, taking those summary points and continuing to work them down to a charter with our goals. So that's exciting. And then I would just mention one time, again, I'll probably mention it every time, that in terms of communication, we are continuing to aspire to not only be transparent, but proactively get communication out everywhere. We are creating a distribution list to whom we will send out the building committee updates. They will be in the form of, there's a full update, but also in the form of a headline with a link to the update. So for any group out there who is interested, we'd be happy to add anyone to our distribution list to receive these updates so that various groups in town can keep tabs on what's going on and stay up to date. So our goal is to really keep everybody updated who's interested, and we're just trying to find the best way to reach all of those audiences within the town.
Next meeting?
Next meeting is this coming Thursday morning here at 7:30.
And we're excited.
November 21st.
SMMA will be here for the first time.
Yes.
And that will be a big portion of the meeting.
Yep. So we'll have them here and start to talk to our designer and start to talk about timeline eventually. So once again, it's all going well.
Very fast.
I would say efficient. Yeah,
Amazing.
very much so.
It wasn't
For a
criticism,
committee.
right?
Oh,
It was
exactly.
actually-
I
No,
agree.
but everything I say is criticism.
Yeah.
No, but you get to a good point, because I think we've been very conscious of the risk one might take were we to accelerate too much.
Right,
So
not
we're
being too
asking-
fast.
We're asking ourselves, I think, routinely,
Yeah.
can we keep a certain pace without compromising anything?
Yeah.
And if not, then timetable changes.
Altogether, I think it was amazingly efficient.
Great, thank you, thank you. That's it on middle school. On to CPS capital plan.
So the
Bring us up to speed.
Yeah, just talk through what we changed.
Yeah, so we made a few changes. So the ERU replacements have gone down a little bit, especially, well, in FY '21. We added $50,000 for an integrated playground at the Thoreau School. And we also, based on your recommendation, we moved the FY '22, we had the boiler exhaust height increase. Russ looked into it. It definitely is an issue. We need to increase it, I want to say, up to 6 feet. They installed it too short, so all the exhaust is blowing at people. So we moved that up. So we decreased the ERU's amount by $70,000 in FY '21, but increased it by $20,000 in FY '22.
He feels comfortable with that, obviously.
Yeah, we still don't know exactly what the costs are going to be, but we think that with these two amounts together over the 2 fiscal years, we're gonna be able to tackle quite a bit of them.
And the Thoreau integrated preschool.
Yeah, so that's been a growing need with the programming that we've created over there. Kids with limited mobility, we need to do something and make sure they've got a really robust outdoor experience. So we've been band-aiding some things, but it's not what it could be. So the $50,000 is not going to be enough, probably. The PTG's had money for playground for a couple of years now. They've been looking to spend. And we may put in for a CEF grant, but we wanted to get a placeholder in here and at least know we could get something better started. So we're excited. We're gonna visit some inclusive playgrounds. I mean, we have an incredible one here with preschool.
I was gonna say, what
right?
has been the experience here?
Yeah, it was incredible, but this was a very costly one. So I would like to do some research to see what the other options are. And we may have to start lower scale. They bit off a lot there and put in everything all essentially in two or three phases, but pretty high ticket phases.
I mean, I can't remember how much it cost.
Yeah, it was hundreds of thousands.
Okay.
So we've got homework to do, but I just want to get some seed money in there.
Sure.
If nothing else, we can get a couple pieces of equipment. But I do
Good.
think there's opportunities with the PTG and CEF too to help support this. So
That's great.
but it's a need we need to start addressing, especially since we're succeeding. Who's hanging out
Programs.
these days?
That's great.
Great, thank
Terrific.
you.
Any other questions? Okay, no votes. Before we adjourn, I just want to say quickly, I want to thank Jared for all the work on this budget and
Yep.
Lori and your
And
staff.
Yes.
I mean, these are incredible budgets to bring us and so much time going. And it's not just the time of building this budget, but all the time you put in over the past year and a half to get us to this place. So much appreciated. And thanks to this committee too, because tonight I think was efficient, and this is some of the most important work that we do as a school committee. And so what we've gone through tonight is critical stuff, really important, and hope everybody feels like they understood it well and are educated, and just thanks for the time that's gone into it. That's it. Yes? Okay, then I would take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Yeah.